All right, guys, welcome to the Hunter's Quest podcast. This is your host, Hunter McWaters, and I'm a little punch drunk. I'm a little, fried. I think we both are, but it's okay. I wanted to do a recap podcast for you guys just about this Alaska trip because it was crazy, and we want to do it while we're fresh and, in person together here. We're crammed into this little Hampton Inn hotel room, but just want to go over this hunt because it was wild.
It was wild, and it was a lot of benchmarks that we had set. We got to live them out, and a lot of other stuff we learned. But
yes,
I mean, I've been on quite a few hunts. I've filmed a few, obviously done some personal hunts. This one is in its own category.
Dude, yes, 100%. This is the most challenging hunt that tested all my skills that I've acquired over the past 3 or 4 years. It was kind of the culmination of stuff for me. It was a benchmark trip, dude.
Yeah, it was as far as DIY go, it was intense.
Yeah.
It was something that, let's start off just going through our first 2 hours in Prudhoe Bay.
Well, hold on a second. I want to say first, this is Jon Bash, my buddy. He has a company called Ghost Cat Media. They do all kinds of stuff all over, not just outdoor industry, but Loophole, but also all over
commercial work, outdoor work, tons of different stuff. But obviously, personal passion-wise, sits right here in this room. So.
Yeah, and so you started Western hunting probably similar to time frame around me, 4 years ago, or are you more than that, Western hunting?
2018 was the first tag in my pocket.
Okay, so a little bit before me.
Yep, and then back.
But you spend a majority of your time working behind the camera, right?
Correct. Yeah, I have not harvested that many animals, and especially if you're in the filming space, especially as it's your profession, you're using the time that you'd normally hunt to go work.
Right.
So I don't get a lot of tags every year. This specific scenario was super unique because naturally over-the-counter situation, long week, we got an opportunity to both film first, shoot second.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge blessing, and it's a rarity, but it also poised a ton of different elements that, are insane.
Well, Jon was a really good partner, good hunter, good glasser, glassed a ton of animals up. We had a good time out there. He had the camera, like I said, most of the time, but especially the first half when when I was kind of looking for one, and then we got to switch. I think it's something that I did with Luke. I've done some episodes like this. I think it's cool to team up with a guy like he was talented behind the camera, and also say, hey man, you get a tag too. Let's kind of team up on this thing. And we kind of shot it like this a little bit, behind the scenes, kind of, because as soon as I tag out, I kind of become cameraman, and I'm filming you, and we're helping each other, and so we got 2 really cool tags filled, 2 stories kind of in one story, and then the other thing that was kind of a highlight. So we hunted, I guess, 6 full days, and the 7th day we rafted 2 full days, 70 river miles from the foot of the Brooks Range into the flatland.
Yeah.
So it was an epic journey.
2 15-hour pack raft days after a 9-mile day, including a pack raft. And we'll get into pack out.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. But, as far as, Alaska is hard enough to do this filming in general with conditions and being in the Brooks Range and all the different variables, but man, to introduce the element of, hey, when you are wrapped up, there's no one picking you up.
Yes.
There's no flight.
Yes. The motto for this trip that kept going through my head was expect to self-rescue.
Yes.
Because literally the deal I worked out with the transporter was this airboat, dude named Hook out of Prudhoe Bay.
Dead Horse.
Yeah, Dead Horse Outfitters. They basically took us up as far as they could on the river, up to an undisclosed location.
Yeah, but it's important.
They dropped us, and then that was it.
And it's important to know, they're a full-service outfitter. They take people up there, they have tents, but they're booked out, 3 years in advance?
Yes, they were booked out 2 or 3 years in advance. But I called them and was like, hey, if you drop us off on an off day, and we float out by ourselves, we take us up. And they're like, oh, let me talk to my partner, and then They're like, yeah, we can do it.
It was definitely a special case scenario, for the show. It's important to note, like, it's probably not something that they're going to do a lot of.
No, they don't normally take people where he took us. Let's put it that way.
And even beyond that, even if we needed rescue at the end of the hunt, he was no longer able to get to where we were because water levels had dropped 2 feet. So it was a very much a...
We were on our own.
Yeah, it was an Uber ride, and we never saw the Uber driver again.
Nope.
And it was like, hey, if all goes well, you're on your own, and if something goes haywire, we're pressing that SOS button and racking up a huge bill.
Pretty much. I mean, we were up there, and not only do we have the pack raft, but we had to use the pack rafts in the very beginning of the hunt too. So I don't want to go into a whole spiel about the pack rafts right now, but I do got to say this. We had alpaca raft rangers that they sent me 2 loaner boats to try out, and they were good.
They did.
They saved our lives.
The fear level going into it was at an extreme high, but within 2 to 3 miles on the river, it was impressive just how much confidence you gained in them.
Each with a whole bunch of stuff we shouldn't have packed and 2 bowls. So.
Yeah, I mean, we made but we made a lot of the packing mistakes that probably a lower 48 person would make doing this hunt.
That's true. That is true. But nevertheless, we saw some amazing stuff. I saw a white and a black wolf. I saw a wolf chasing 2 huge caribou bulls. We saw a giant musk ox at like 20 yards. And
let's save some of the...
Well, I'm just giving the highlights real quick.
Play-by-play,
Yeah, but we're going to jump into the play-by-play. But let's just do that. So before we just jump all around.
So flying into Prudhoe Bay, what was your first impressions? Obviously, neither of us had ever been up there.
Okay, good question, dude. Prudhoe Bay is not a town or anything like that. It is a oil outpost. Yep. We were in a dormitory designed to house workers for 2-week or 3-week stints that go back and forth from their families. And it's just a really interesting environment. It's all dudes, working, and there's like a few hunters, and then mainly oil field guys.
And we had, going into it, I'd been to northern Norway and Finland, and I was like, there's no way it's higher or further north. And you told me the Dalton Highway is the furthest
north you can drive in the world.
Yeah, and then I looked at it on the map, and sure enough, like, it is a good distance further north than even the top of Norway. And
yeah, I heard that is the farthest north in the world you can drive.
Yeah, so a unique thing being, even looking at yourself, the little blue dot in the pin up there, like, not just the farthest north in the world, but obviously, like, cool to hunt in the furthest north species, more or less, of the entire United States.
And we not just hunt one species, but we were living in this, like, thriving ecosystem with predators and prey, and we saw a lot of cool stuff.
So
our guide said there's probably been 1,000 people in the area we were in the last 20 years. So that's pretty cool.
And there's not a lot of super cubs that fly in there. It's nearly impossible. It takes just the perfect amount of water to get up there in the airboats, which we were lucky to have a high water year.
Yeah, which we still had, like I said, we had to use our boats to get in there too. So that's another separation point.
So we get in, and it's the full-on, like, oil field, northern Russia barracks, like row building vibes.
Flat ground.
And we have...
Industrial.
From hitting the ground, we have about 90 minutes to go pee, get a cup of coffee, get everything ready to go, and we are on the boat.
We're literally, maybe this is just my planning. I actually, in retrospect, kind of don't mind it. It was a little bit frantic. But usually I plan like a day in advance. I remember when we got back to Brooks Camp at the end of the hunt, there were guys like waiting a day or two in Brooks Camp to go out. Actually, I'm kind of glad I didn't have to do that in a way. But anyway.
It's a risky thing. I mean, there's guys that got stuck there for weather. So like going, one thing that was fortunate for us is because of going immediately and we had a good weather day that we didn't lose any hunting days.
Yeah.
It was
we lost nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we literally get to the boat launch and it's like some covered carport type like tent things.
Yeah, we were like, hey, is there anywhere inside that we can get camera gear ready, change into hunting gear stuff? And they're like, yeah, we got a carport for you. It was a canvas tent.
Yeah. And like we literally, I mean, we're in flight mode. We have to change all our gear.
I was wearing this.
Yeah. I was wearing like my traveling clothes too. But anyway, yeah, it was just completely crazy. Like they're like, all right, here, and we had like an hour to reshuffle all our gear. And like I said, this is not just for like a little easy drop camp. This is like go in with everything to survive in Alaska alone, 50 miles away from anybody, and get out on your own. So it was definitely like, and that's the thing about Alaska, like it humbles you, and like it always gives me that like that feeling in my gut, like I would get before like a lacrosse game or a wrestling match a little bit, just like, oh geez, like like you're about to go up against something big.
Yeah, you're about to get hit in the mouth. You're about to get like it is going to be a little bit of struggle. There's going to be some contact. There's going to be yeah,
for sure.
So we're going up the river, and like this, I mean, you said it like really best. We got to see a pretty big spectrum of different migration corridor environments, and it's pretty ranged. So like, talk
the
me
amount
through,
of ground we covered.
Yeah, talk through like some of the like the different environments, because obviously there's the flats. Like talk through some of the different environments that this whole river basin, the Ivershak, had to offer.
So, man, I love this. You're like interviewing me, dude. This is great. So yeah, we were going out is when I really noticed it on the rafts. So obviously, you're going slower. You're part of the flowing of the actual environment. You're a part of the environment, pretty much. On the way up, it's kind of like, So I was just kind of like, here we go, and like my mind's going a million directions.
You have like the comm headsets in, and they're like trying to tell you things. They're like, look to the right, and it's like cutting out, and you're like, what is going on?
And we're trying to film. We just got off. Like 18 hours of straight air travel. Like so, we're already like mentally and physically just off. And it's like boom into the fire. And I didn't forget anything. I remember being really nervous. Like, I forgot something definitely. But
I forgot so many things. On brand for me. To start off a spoon.
Okay. Anyway, back to the ecosystem. So taking from the rafting, but not going to jump ahead of the rafting. But yeah, you started off and it was kind of broad river, kind of muddy. Very flat, just marshy tundra, but mainly marshy.
Pretty much at the ocean. You're at like more or less. You're a little bit further in, but pretty much at the mouth of the river, where the river flows into the ocean.
It's just like marsh. And then you drive from Prudhoe about an hour. I guess it's south, and then there's the boat launch. And there, it's more tundra-y, but still very marshy and very flat. And then as you start to go, I don't know, about 30 miles in, it starts to get some big, really big 1,000-foot rollers.
True tundra hills. Like they were saying, it might look like you can make it up in 30 minutes to an hour, but those hills are 3 to 4 miles just to the top. And then the top, the top is 3 miles of a flat plateau, and then it goes down.
Yes, they're huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And very tough to walk in. Like, I think they say if it's true tundra, like the really spongy, tussocks-y stuff, I think it's twice as hard. So like I think you cover half as many miles, like with the same effort.
Yeah, and
perceived effort.
The one advice we got on our our kind of prep podcast was the harder you push, the harder the tundra is going to push back, and that is 100% true.
Very true. You have to walk slow, or you will roll an ankle in 13 seconds.
For all the gamers that are used to doing quick miles and elevation and elk country, it is a different mindset.
No, you just have to move slowly and intentionally. So that's why I say you can't really chase down a caribou. But fortunately, we didn't have to.
Yeah. So we get dropped off.
Yeah. So then we get dropped off in the base of the Brooks Range Mountains. Shale, like sheep country looking mountains. And like you said it best earlier, we were right at the last point where there were still a couple rollers before it was like sheep mountains.
Yeah, we had like a couple knobs that probably were like 1,200 feet in elevation tops that we could go hunt. And if we went to the next hill beyond that, we're literally climbing a sheep mountain. Like there was no, we're at the last possible hunting elevation.
These drainages went up into huge mountains. So it was cool. And at that point, the water's extremely clear. John drank it all week without filtering, I think.
Yep, I did not filter.
I stereo-penned most of my stuff still, just to be extra safe, but the water was good.
And that's that's a little bit out of negligence. I had a filter, but filling up your Camelback, with a hand filter and everything all week, especially with all the energy you're putting into other places, I just kind of was like, well, we're gonna figure out the hard way whether or not we can.
We'll just test it with Giardia.
Yeah.
No, but it was fine. I drank some of it, but mainly I stereo-penned it. But anyway, so we get dropped on. We basically get dropped as far as our transporter could legally take us within the scope of his jurisdiction, or whatever it's called. his grounds.
He can't go into the refuge, the wildlife refuge, with the airboat.
Yeah. And so, so he dropped us as close as he could on the river. And then we set up camp. Sorry, I had another train of thought go out.
Yeah, so we set up camp, and immediately, thankfully, like, we did come very well prepared in terms of camp. It was not ultralight, but we had 4-season Hilleberg tents.
Yes, we were outfitted nicely.
Yeah, I mean,
I had a little ultralight cot.
Yeah, which is, I think one of the big ethos things of the entire week, which your buddy taught you, is like backcountry longevity.
Yes,
and I think
Ned. Shout out to Ned.
I think there's that tough, duality on a hunt like this of like you could go super ultralight.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a shelter that's warm, that's comfortable, I mean, there was a very good possibility anywhere in Alaska, but especially where we were at, that we could have been stuck in our tents for 2 whole days in a row.
Yes.
It's happened to people we know.
It's happened to me.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we had those awesome shelters.
Yeah. I mean, and we had 0-degree or 15-degree bags. We had good little cots, or really, a little bit oversized sleeping pads.
Yeah.
Which was more so, again, just to make sure that we could endure and push for the whole week.
And we were also, which is a fair assumption, but we were kind of operating under, get dropped in a spot, base camp, not really move it, and kind of hunt from there. That's kind of
the rafts were just to get out.
Yeah, the rafts were just to get out. But turns out we get dropped on an island, and the transporter basically says, "Yep." So they kind of come through here, and he points to many miles. He's like, "Sometimes, but just kind of figure out which way you want to go and go."
And it's a true once you get up to the mountains at the start of these rivers, it's a true. He called it a reverse delta, but it's a true river basin. It's 2 miles across with 20 or 30 braids that might be 6 inches deep or 4 feet deep. But night one, we get tent set up and we pull up the glass and beautiful sunset. And lo and behold, first thing we see, bulls. Big bulls.
Ones. Yeah, we saw big bulls.
So we decided, we're like, hey, we're going to, they were 2.5 miles away. Definitely in a playable range, definitely in a spot that we felt confident that we could, if they stayed in the area, that we'd be in good shape. So we went on a little scouting mission to just find out, hey, where can we...
Yeah, to see if we could cross on foot.
Yeah.
Without having to get the rafts out.
And we found out.
We found out we could not. I brought waders, but even with the waders, I don't think it wouldn't have been safe to cross over that, because once it gets past your mid-thigh, it's going fast enough where it's hard to stand.
And that's one of the main reasons that we could float out, is because this river has such strong flows that it provides enough speed that you can cover 70 river miles in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah. But that is one thing. If you get one of these alpaca rafts, they're self-bailing, which they have to be. You
cannot bring a not self-bailing raft on this.
No, you cannot. And also, get some ultralight waders.
Yep.
I would recommend
I
those.
did not.
He was a little soggy. I stayed pretty dry. But anyway, we were not expecting to have to, but after the first night of glassing, some really good bulls on the... Which side would that be? The south side?
Yeah, it'd be like the southwest
Southeast
of us.
side.
Yeah, just across the, we essentially had to cross, 3 braids of river to get to solid ground to where we could hike up into huntable ground.
So we had to basically, and like I said, we were not prepared to be able to take all our stuff on our back in one load. Like, we had the rafts, we had pretty good shelters,
pangas, backpacks for camera gear, obviously our hunting pack. I mean,
So we couldn't just grab the rafts and go. We had to make a plan to shuttle stuff back and forth to the boat launch site. And then we would have to, the first time we had to go over and across, take a load, come back, get another load, go over again. And then, it was like an ordeal.
It felt like, for anyone that played Oregon Trail growing up, when it's take the risk for river crossing, fording the river, and it was you lost 2 wagon wheels. It was one of those things where it's
we lost 2 batteries in the card reader.
Yeah.
And the drone.
Yeah. Well, thankfully the drone's fine. But I mean, and we were, that was day 2 of the hunt. So we're mixed with this excitement of seeing bulls immediately.
Yeah.
And also having to do the most technical part of the trip right away.
That's a very good way of putting it. It was probably the most technical part of the trip. It absolutely was. Because floating is already kind of hard enough, but when you got to cross a swiftly moving body of water and like hit a target,
and moving that fast, and which Hunter was, this is where I'll show my hand. I was like, okay, we'll just walk up and then we'll put them in and then we'll just go down river. But the current is so fast that there's no way to cross with the current. You have to paddle into the current and like slowly, I mean, our target bars for crossing were maybe like an 80-yard window. So if you missed that window, you might end up a quarter mile downriver.
Yeah. I learned that from Mark Livesey. You got to keep your nose up and row into it and just like slowly inch your way across. If you just try to bomb across, you're going down.
Yep.
So thanks, Mark.
Yep.
But that side note on the pack rafts, if you've been following like me at all, I have like a sketchy history with pack rafts. Like this is only the third time really I've hunted with pack rafts, and then the last time was this spring bear season, and I underestimated the current and just got like washed into some willows, and it was bad. The time before that was pretty scary too, but it was kind of like a weak spot almost, or like a fear spot.
And if you're lower 48, like I mean, obviously you're safety prone, but like you're thinking of this water's 34 degrees. It's rushing extremely quickly. You obviously in your preparatory mindset of like, hey, we need to be safe. Your first thought is it's Alaska. We cannot get everything wet because it'll never get dry.
It'll never get dry, and we're not like, we can't just get on the phone and be like, hey, come pick us up. Like it's not like that. So he's busy with other clients. Like he might not be able to get back. It took us like 3 hours on the riverboat to get there.
Yep.
So it wasn't like it was like a long run back there, even on the fan boat. Yeah. So, and I do have a very like kind of, I'm always, I don't know, not nervous, but like very aware of risk. Like I get that from my dad, and you just got to be. It's not.
It's a mix of paranoia and respect. I mean, you're like, hey, like especially when you're in a situation where there's no feasible quick safety option, you are gonna naturally be in a heightened state.
Absolutely, and we were in a heightened state for it took us pretty much the entire day to cross, like, because you have to strategically pack. You have to like. It sounds like maybe more simple, but it's when you have camera gear to protect and like sleep systems. You can't just like, oh yeah. So we had to do it very methodically and carefully. Then we got set up in a nice camp on the riverbank close to water. Yep. And where we could basically glass pretty much from camp. I mean, we had to move a little bit to get to better spots, but...
So that night, and I guess, one really cool thing about being at the foot of the Brooks is we were actually not in a migration corridor. We were at the end. We're more or less in the rutting ground. So this is where all these caribou were supposed to end up.
Yeah.
So we,
the bulls were starting to show up, waiting for the other like cows to arrive and stuff.
Exactly. So we didn't see, we maybe saw one cow the whole trip.
I to be honest, I saw one, I think, cow like 3 miles away. I don't ever actually remember being like, that is for sure a cow.
Yep.
I mean, pretty much all I remember seeing is like nice bulls.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
Now, like one advantage,
and a couple small bulls.
One advantage of that for us was it was at times, this was an unreasonably warm year for caribou. Okay. From all the accounts that we were told, the other hunters, and it was, they just weren't in, most people think, and we totally thought, like, we're going to see groups of 15, 20, like a true herd moving through.
We never really saw big herds, like, moving through areas.
And even people upriver from us were, obviously post-op, when we got to talk to other hunters, they were like, dude, we didn't see very much migration activity. Yeah. So it worked out in our advantage to be in a spot that these animals were more or less home ranged, patternable. They're whether you call them lazy, whether you call them smart, they're waiting for all the other bulls to group up cows and bring them to them.
Yeah, that's true, man. I guess we were kind of talking to Hook about that a little bit. There's different, like you were mentioning earlier too, there's different like styles of caribou. There's hunts like, and a lot of it, at least in my mind too, I was like kind of expecting, like you said, the migratory animal kind of be more like waiting for him to come into an area. But what was cool about this hunt is, like you just said, we were able to pattern kind of bulls and then move in on them. So it was more like, it wasn't like your typical kind of just hang out in camp, wait for a caribou to cross by. Like, it was a dynamic hunt,
Yeah, so like night one, we see those big bulls. We saw a group of 4. Yeah. And then once we did our river crossings, get camp set up, we glassed the same group in the same spot, feeding, doing their thing. Same hill. and we make a move on them on night one. They were about 1.7 miles from us.
I remember, dude. Like, we were glassing them. You were looking at them through the spotter, and we were like, what was it, like 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock, yeah.
8 o'clock at night.
But it's light till 11.
Right.
11:30.
Yeah. But at first we were like, oh, yeah, that's cool, man. Like, and now we know where to go. And then we look at each other and we're like, dude, should we just send it? And we're like, yeah, let's do it. So we just went.
And so we cover ground pretty quickly. We get to 1,000 yards, and
we closed the distance on like 45 minutes.
Yeah. And so, you know, that's another thing. Like, granted, we definitely hit some spots of, you know, maybe not the worst of it, like the real big ones, but we hit some hard tussocks and some slow country. Yeah. But being that close to the brooks, being in a river basin, we were fortunate to have some harder ground, some rocky ground that we could allow us to move some quicker and further distances in a given day. We
could find some pretty decent ground, and we managed to find some pretty decent ground. You're right. We hit like a few bad spots, but yeah, we found some good walking.
So we closed the distance to 800 yards, and
I'm putting a shell in my gun.
I mean, we thought like this is going to be quick. I mean, they're not, you know, they're grazing. They're not moving out of that area. They've been there for 2 days. They'd probably been there for a week since, you know, before we got there. And so, you pull up the glass.
Yeah, so we're going in. We're about to, you know, we think we're about to kill one.
Yep.
And we probably were. I pull up the glass, and at first I go, is that a fox? Because it's just really far away. And then I realize it's a black wolf. And so I'm like, huh, interesting. So we continue stalking. I kind of mentioned it in passing when we started. Yeah. And then as we're getting closer, I put another bullet into the chamber, or I put a bullet into the chamber of my gun. I raise the glass again, and I just see the two bulls taking off. And I actually tried to flag them, because I thought we had scared them. But then I pulled my glass again, and there's that black wolf just dogging them.
Pushing them up straight into the mountains away from us.
Which was cool to see. I mean, obviously the hunt was over, but it was a cool thing to witness. Like a wolf, like, you know, being a predator, trying to take out two mature bulls. So,
and the flagging thing was pretty cool, because I had no clue what that was. So obviously caribou have white butts, so you carried around with you for dire straits.
A white stuff sack.
Oh yeah, a white stuff sack. So, you know, as we're moving through, we look like big brown, you know, dark, you know, things moving around. But you threw it up just to say like, hey, there's a white butt or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And those are, you know, that might work only, I don't know it might work 1 out of 10 times, but.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it works pretty good if they see it, they're not scared.
Yeah.
Because they get curious, you know? It's like the open ocean out there, and they see another, it could be a caribou. They just want to go check it out, you know? Because they're herd animals. They feel more safe together.
And we found out from that stalk, you know, we were pushing pretty quickly, but one really cool thing just as we were pushing through that country is we found massive sets of moose paddles, like
match
sets, big legal bulls, 4-point, like brow tine. You know, we got photos and videos of it, but it was a cool little like sample size of the bear, the moose. Like we were in a very dynamic area, not just your typical tundra where you may just see caribou and bears.
There's variety of kind of different little micro ecosystems. Like there was the alders, there was the tundra, there was the harder ground stuff, and then there was like the hills kind of. So yeah, we had some more variety. It wasn't just like flat tundra, which I really liked. And we can see the mountains. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
They get snow capped a couple times. But anyway, also that first stalk that night, it kind of gave us a little like overview of like, here's a country, here's what you can do, here's what's realistic. So that was good too. So obviously I was a little bummed, but looking back, I'm glad it happened this way. But I was at least glad that we didn't scare the caribou, but it was like just natural predation. I thought that was pretty cool. So
yeah, and going through like any DIY hunter in like a new environment, like your number one fear is like, don't let my newbie nature screw this. Like I don't want to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
So that was nice because both of us, you know, obviously when we saw him running off at first, we're like, oh, did we blow him? Like we had the wind at our backs. So we were like, oh, is this a scent thing? Is this a?
And I gotta admit, dude, like sometimes I get in the zone, and like that's probably one area that I need to improve on. Is I noticed it when I was editing my mule deer film that's coming out this fall. I have a tendency to just go a little hard and kind of just like. Oh, and they booger.
But this is, but the caribou is probably one of the few animals, like Western big game animals, to where you can get away with that a little bit more.
Yeah, they're just, these ones anyway, are just not super I mean, they're not going to let you just walk up to them, but they're not like super concerned about.
Well, you said
humans.
1,000 people in 20 years. Like, you know, they're not routinely getting hunted
Right.
by ground pressure and all this
Right.
type of stuff. And if they do, they might, you know, maybe 1 or 2 bulls are taken out of there a year type thing. It's not, I mean, and thousands of them will end up there.
Absolutely. So it's a low pressure, low hunted area. Like, oh, I don't want to get into that, but it's a low pressure area.
So successful second day. We go back to camp at least with some pretty high confidence that we've at least got
consistently seeing bulls in this area.
And obviously the next step on day 3 was one of the last little knobs, like pretty much where we were trying to get to on that stalk. We were like, let's just get there and glass the next day.
Yeah.
So we set out, we spend the morning glassing. We did see a couple more bulls up there and we're like, okay, still in the area.
This is day 3?
This is day 3.
Okay, it was raining too.
Yep, it was raining. And
I remember we woke up and it was one of those days where I look out the tent, you can't really see anything, and it was raining, and you know that thought in the back of your mind's like, yeah, you could just hang out in the tent, you know, like watch some Netflix or something. And I was like, no, we went ahead and got going, had some coffee, took the shelter. So here's a big thing. Carry with you a tarp. Like I have a little Dyneema tarp, just big enough for 2 guys to sit under, and we found, not this day unfortunately, but we found the next day, if you carry 4 tent stakes and 4 trekking poles, pretty much no matter where you are, you can set up some sort of little lean-to.
Yep. So
we were able to use that together. That's just a little side note on the gear. But anyway, it's raining.
So it's raining, which, you know, another fun little fact, which is like probably just so 101 to most people, but like when you're in a really good shelter, like a Hilleberg or something like that, when you're laying in your tent in the morning, whatever amount you think it's raining because of the sound on your tent, it's about probably only 20% of that.
That's so true.
And you're like, oh, it's raining outside, and then you walk outside and it's a light little drizzle, completely huntable.
Yeah.
So you know, you kind of combat your inner wuss there and be like, okay, it's really not raining.
Well, and because those freaking Hilleberg tents, dude, like the vestibule is so big. I have all my gear. I have a completely clean and dry sleeping quarters over here. I'm sitting in my camp chair inside the vestibule of my tent with all my gear, like sipping on coffee and like eating my breakfast. And like it's just so easy to kind of like get cozy in there. But anyway, went out.
So we go out, and one thing I'll pat ourselves on the back. We knew those bulls were up there. We saw them that morning. This is now 3 days in a row of seeing these bulls in the same area, but we didn't push in that hard. We're like, hey, let's stage hunt it. We got all day. Let's find out where they're at. Let's slowly move in. And the tarp was great for that because we would go 3/4 of a mile, set up the tarp, go for 2 hours. And we were like, hey, we know because these aren't migratory really animals, they're at the end of the migration, that they don't want to get pushed out of there, you know, if they don't have to.
Yeah.
So we kind of stage hunt our way in.
Plus there's all these little seams and pockets that they can be in.
Oh, yeah.
And just disappear. So like if you just bomb straight up to the hill, like you could flush stuff out. So that was definitely the right call. We like literally moved in.
Yep.
Stopped, ate, chilled, glassed.
For an hour and a half, 2 hours. Yeah. And obviously, you know, it is big country. So like while like where we saw them on day 1 to where we stalked them on day 2 was still a mile apart. Right. It doesn't look like it because they're in the same bowl, basin, seam, whatever you want, you know, but they're still pretty far. So you still want to relocate them and kind of figure out what part of the tundra they're feeding on that day. Yep. So, but our goal was to eventually get to, you know, this little knob.
Yep. Because that was probably the first little knob, like where it started to kind of change into mountains. So that was like the first closest place to camp we could get like any type of real like significant elevation to see just the whole general area. Everywhere else, like we were kind of glassing from the river basin up, you know. Yep. But this gave us a little better advantage, and we could still see the side of the mountains. And so yeah, that was the ultimate goal, is to get there. So I think that was like our 3rd stop, right?
Yeah, it was our 3rd stop, and it was only. I mean, when we say knob, we're talking like 600 to 800 feet of elevation. It wasn't much, but because of how flat the river basin is, getting up a couple hundred feet is the difference between seeing 5 miles and seeing 500 yards.
Yeah.
Like,
any elevation's like huge.
So we get up to the knob. There's this really awesome, like World War I, like foxhole shooting rest rock outcropping, and I immediately am like, let's stop here. We can see all the area where the caribou were. There's like a cool covered shooting rest that we get to like, we can shoot down into the basin where we would kind of been seeing them. And you make the comment, which every smart hunter does, like, let me just peek over a rise, which was
there's another like 100 or 200 foot rise that we weren't quite to the peak of this little thing.
Yep.
You got to see over the peak, man.
Yeah. So, naturally he goes over and, within, oh man, I mean, he gets only 80 feet from me and looks back and just, the white of your eyes are as big as they were all trip. And it's just like, bull.
Yeah.
And he
bulls.
And he comes back and he's like, get the camera ready, get the long lens and everything. And I'm like, he's like, we're gonna go kill, like, and they're bedded.
Yeah.
So we have the upper hand. We actually have the wind in our favor. We have the ground in our favor. And I remember just being like, you're like, get it ready. I'm like, I have no clue where these things are at. Like, I'm like, I have no context. Yeah. And we start crawling. We start doing everything that we should do. And yeah, I'll never forget being 15 feet behind you, finally getting to the point where just, what Remy Warren said this a long time ago in a how-to, like a caribou, he called it scrolling. Like, you always want to, as you're going up these rises, you always want to scroll where you're glassing, going up 10 feet. So you're just incrementally seeing, and that's exactly what you did and why you saw these, is because you were stopping frequently, and with every 100 yards of visibility that you gained, you were glassing, and lo and behold, you saw bedded bulls.
If I had just completely nonchalantly just walked my butt straight up and just skylined myself and I was like, look, hey, it probably would have ended the way it did.
Yeah.
But
even somewhere in between, it probably would have, if you weren't really taking it 20 or 30 yards at a time, there's a very good chance that, we would have been busted.
That's a great point. And yeah, I was just doing what John just said, and I just see like a dark, kind of anomalous looking spot, and I was like, caught my eye, glass, and it was a young bull, like just bedded, like asleep. Like at one point, a couple points, his head was just in the dirt,
like a lab on a porch.
Yeah, like, just out, a younger bull. And then I saw right next to him, I saw a mature. All I could see was antlers. It was like brush, antlers, and I could see just every couple seconds. And so I pretty much right then, saw mature caribou, and I'm like, my subconscious is like, you're going to kill this thing.
And we had a conversation, which I think like is, so important on these trips, especially if you're a DIY hunter, is like, take the opportunity that you're given. We had seen bigger bulls already at this point, and we were in range of this. It was bedded. We had everything. It was a mature animal. As you, like, one of the things I really respect that you said is like, it is an accurate representation. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be a giant bull. It doesn't need a score heat, but like it is an accurate representation of what a mature caribou in that region look like. So, and I even told you, I was like, hey, he's not as big as what we've been seeing. Are you sure? Are you sure? And you were dead set. You were like, this is a mature animal.
Yep.
It is a representation of what a caribou should look like. Had a beautiful, big old, front shovel, had great mass, and we had the upper hand.
Yeah.
And when you're 70 river miles up there and you're doing it by yourself, like, I'm so grateful that we didn't hold out at this stage of where we are at Hunters.
Me too. Like, yeah, you couldn't have said it better. I knew we'd seen bigger caribou, but it's not about the score for me. Like, honestly, I mean, it's fun to talk about like big animals, and I'm sure, I'd like to get bigger ones, and that's all part of the progression. But right now, like I said, we're DIY hunters. Like, we are out of state. I mean, we're basically in another country. Yep. Let's be honest. Like, we're pretty much in another country. It's
closer to Russia than the United States.
Yeah, it's completely different. Like, going and doing this DIY at my, relatively small experience level, I mean, I'm not going to pass up a mature animal, and I'm so glad I didn't. Like, he's a sick, like, bull. I love him. So I saw those big things going, and I knew deep down, I was like, yeah, he's not, like, the biggest one we've seen, but I'm stoked on him.
So we seemingly have time on our hands, so we get the long lens on the tripod, and we'd been recording them bedded for, maybe 10 to 12 minutes. We make the decision, which in open country, especially from a filming perspective, if you do have a long lens, it was like, hey, you're going to crawl in, you're going to close the distance. I think we were originally at about 320, 310 when we first saw him.
Okay, no, so I was a little bit off my initial reaction. We were more like, I think we were probably like more like 500 or 600 yards.
Okay.
When I first saw him. So I still had to crawl in, I think a couple, maybe 150 yards or something.
But by the time, once you had started crawling, we knew that we were like 350. Not when we first saw him, but once we started crawling, we knew we were like in a lethal range.
Yeah, so I saw the bulls. I crawled back to you because you couldn't even see him yet. And I was just like, I wanted you to stay there so we could get ready while we were still like completely out of their view, like on the other side of the rise. So that's what we did. We got ready, got the cameras ready and stuff, and then we kind of crept up to where we could see him again. And at that point, we sort of made the decision. And it's kind of cool. The way we filmed it is like really behind the scenes kind of feel to it. Like you kind of get a feel of what it takes to film a hunt, which is a cool perspective.
And so we're like, obviously, and this is, not a point of contention, but this is part of the workings of filming these things and creating an environment. We made the comment, I was like, hey, we need to let's get new batteries in. But Hunter,
I went into hunt mode.
Yeah, he went into hunt mode, which naturally you should because you're focused on filling and tags. So we set out. We have my camera, which is more or less a close range camera, then obviously the long range one.
Honestly, since I was the hunter at this point, I should have already just given you the camera, the beginning of the day.
Yep.
I should have.
And that's one testament to you though is you're doing a little bit of both. Like the camera batteries for that thing were in your pack. Like we're doing you're self-filming a little bit. I'm filming. There's definitely something.
And I like that aspect of it too.
Yeah.
But
so we get all set up.
It's extra. You
make the stock. They're bedded, and I look at the long lens, and both of them are in frame. Not going anywhere. And at this point, I mean, not just like, hey, like it was like 30, it had probably been 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes between when we first saw them to where you're crawling.
I think it felt like that. I bet it was more like 5. I bet it felt like an hour.
I know we have over 15 minutes of film.
Oh, do we? Okay.
Maybe
it was. I mean.
So we get set up, and I look at but they're bedded animals, and it's at this point 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So like we hadn't seen them getting up and moving till 8 p.m.
Right. But I always, and this is something I'm learning as a new hunter, I always have like a very big sense of urgency when I see an opportunity, just because they're hard to come by and you want to capitalize, And so I don't like letting opportunities pass, and when it's there, like I need to work on probably my patience a little, but
yeah, that's a catch-22. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we did it right, man.
We did. But it was, of all the hunts I've filmed, it was out of character for me to turn the camera around on myself in that moment. But I was like a little bit, we've met each other, but this is my first time filming for you. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I look at your camera, bulls are in frame, they're bedded, you're kind of getting set up, you're crawled ahead.
I'm ranging, I'm getting
batteries at 18%. I'm like, if these things stay bedded for 30, 40, like if they're just going to hang out, I don't know where these batteries are at.
If you knew me better, you knew I'd never let animals sit that long.
but that's the dynamic.
Yeah, exactly.
So I turned the camera around on myself.
But at this point, had the little bull stood up yet?
No, he was laying on his side. And then he had stood up, but he stood up and went down just once. Like he stood up and then laid back down.
Did he?
He did.
Remember that.
So I turned the camera around and I'm filming myself and I'm like, hey, I've got to make a choice. Either I'm going to stop rolling on the camera, preserve battery, and wait till they stand up, or just keep rolling till it dies and just hope.
Yeah.
And right at the end of my monologue, the little bull was standing at that point, and that was again 10, 12 minutes into it, and
I was at 280 yards at this point.
Yep. Great spot. Oh, he made it over the rise crawling. No longer skyline. Yeah. Go ahead.
No. We finished that.
But I see the little bull kind of get a little bit squirrely, and it starts to move it moves in a way and starts acting in a way that it hadn't been the entire time. Like it just gets a little on edge.
I was having a little trouble ranging them, and so I crawled in to, I don't know, what was it, like 4 something, and I'd like to get closer if I can. They seemed like they were pretty chill, so I could get if I went straight at them, I could get like pretty close, but the hill was on a negative grade, so it'd be really hard to set up prone comfortably.
And a lot of rocks.
A lot of rocks. I was on rock. And so, but I saw a spot about 100 yards up and to the right a little bit that like, it was like a little scoop out. So where I could get like prone and like comfortable. So I headed for that, which was a good call. Got set up nice and solid. And so yeah, the little guy, he got a little nervous. He knew something was going on. He stood up because the bigger bull, he was bedded in the brush. So that was
it was so
me.
strange. Like,
only could see his antlers.
He was moving a little bit, but like for a bull that was that old, 6, 7 years old, he was not bedded in a way to where he had great eyesight. He was like brushed in.
He was more concerned about, I think, cover than seeing. I think he literally had this younger bull out bedded in the open, just like as his kind of canary in the coal mine, dude.
Yep.
And that's what it was. So the little guy saw me, and he got up, and at that point, my bull starts to be a little bit more aware, I noticed.
Yep.
And then eventually, I'm getting set up and ranging. I'm trying to make sure I got a good range. And the little bull starts to trot. And I watched the footage last night. It's pretty cool. He goes behind the big bull. The big bull stands up all regal as soon as, and I knew that since the little guy was already trotting, if my dude turned, he wasn't going to like turn one step broadside and give me a broadside. If he turned, he was going to be trotting.
Yeah, it was like code yellow going on code orange, going on code red, and it was all going to happen in 2 minutes at that point.
And the little guy is trotting. So at that point, he's probably going to start trotting after the little guy. And so I just, in the way he was standing, he was exposing perfectly I can't remember exactly, but perfectly with his front shoulder exposed to the back. So it was like perfect line through his vitals. And had a comfortable range. I was rock solid. Hit him frontal and just.
I mean, it was
the Barnes bullet. Just
it was.
Shameless plug. Barnes bullets. I mean, I shoot solid copper, and it's just devastating. I could hear the impact, and he went probably 20 feet, and then I saw him just gush like blood out of both nostrils and fall.
Yeah, I mean, it was as quick of a, especially from my experience. From that range, from a 300-yard, it was as quick of a kill as I've seen.
Dude, it was those frontal shots. If you're confident and set up and like you hit them right, you hit them perfectly right there and just very humane, just done.
And it was kind of, I mean, it was so because we're day 3 at this point, and it happened at 4 in the afternoon. I mean, it was like
it was the first full day of hunting.
Yeah, and it was shocking. I was like, it was I mean, both of us, neither of us really knew. We were like, well, I mean, we're playing a little bit into our just, belief. We're like, hey, we're DIY, we're novice, we're doing, like, it felt too easy. And not that it wasn't done meticulously and really strategically, but like to have it happen in that way, to walk up on a bedded bull, it almost felt undeserving.
Yeah, huge hunts usually are much more of a grind. Like it usually ends up being day 5 or 6, and like you kind of get nervous for a couple of days in there. This is one of the smoothest hunts that's ever happened for me, but such a blessing because I'd kind of paid my caribou dues already. One of my first trip ever was in Alaska and didn't fill one then. Actually, I was thinking about it earlier today. I was like, it's actually kind of good we didn't kill. We were really far back.
Yeah.
If we'd killed 2 bulls, it would have been brutal. But anyway, learned a ton on that trip. That's why I have like a special place in my heart for Alaska. It was my first trip ever. And so to kind of come full circle, it's always been kind of special for me with the caribou. But really cool, man. And just when we got back, we were able to get a rough age on it. I'm not an expert, but we talked to our guide, and he's been doing it a long time. And not our guide, our transporter.
Yeah.
Transporter. There's a distinction there. But anyway, he said he was probably like 6 years old maybe.
But they only lived to 8 or 9.
Yeah.
So it's like...
I mean, his back molars were like almost gone.
Yep.
So that dude had survived 5 or 6 insane winters, getting chased by wolves. Like, it's just, I think they're really cool animals, man.
And
where they live. It's just...
And they are like... So we walk up, mature animal, obviously, big-bodied animal.
Yeah, like almost the size of like a cow elk, maybe? Smaller one?
Small cow elk. I mean, for sure, like 1.5 big mule deer.
Yeah. Way bigger than a big mule deer.
Yeah, way bigger.
I was surprised.
And interesting, like, for everyone that likes to, obviously break down their old animals and process, like anatomically a little bit different than other deer species. I mean, for guys that have hunted, you know, a lot of whitetail, a lot of other deer species, hunted elk, like the butchering process was a little bit of a learning experience.
It was, yeah. Especially the back strap, because like you mentioned, the back kind of curves down almost like a horse or something.
Because you're so used to that back strap starting more or less at the base of the neck. And but because of that little swoop, that spine kind of stops and they just have that, I mean, a huge neck roast.
Yeah, and you got your back straps out really nice after we kind of had one to practice.
The second guy is always.
But anyway, man, it was such an incredible experience. But yeah, I do remember after seeing them go down, having this weird kind of just almost silent reaction. It's like, whoa, you know, like it wasn't like jumping around, hooting and hollering. That's not really me, but I mean, there's a time for that. But I was just like, whoa. It was just it did happen very smooth. But at the same time, it was the culmination of a lot of, you know, I guess kind of multi-year, honestly.
I think a lot of it too is like we were so early in the hunt that we were still in the learning phase, and we were still like getting our confidence of like how to manage the terrain. Like we were still just in the growth phase of the hunt versus like the confident, like this is the plan. So to get it done while still learning, you're like,
I'm just walking over a rise, oh, bulls. So, but I mean, we put ourselves in that position. Because that's where we saw the animals, and we did it in a smart way. So I mean, it was kind of like it was definitely a blessing from God, but also we did our part. We got in the arena. That's what you do. It's like an analogy I use a lot is like hockey or like soccer. Sometimes the best move is just lob the ball in the direction of the goal as hard as you can. And just get in the arena, and then you can get more technical on how to like get it in the actual goal.
Absolutely. It's like real estate, like just get into the real estate where good things can happen.
Start with the goalkeeper and just lob it down
there. So we shot, it was a little over almost 2.5 miles from camp. Like we said, we had decent terrain going there, but it was a
little bit of tussocks.
We had, from where it was killed, we had almost a mile. It was like half a mile, 3/4 of a mile, straight downhill. Tundra tussocks. And we hadn't taken that route yet. So like the route we took up there was, you know, relatively manageable. And then we found out like 300 yards in, we were like, oh gosh.
I do remember one time on the walk out though, we were looking for some trees to make our little shelter, rain shelter, and there was none, and we were just kind of like, you know, like it's kind of like, this is, because that was during the tussocks part too. But yeah, the first part of the tussocks was tough. You got to be really careful where you put your feet, but it's just go slow. And
one little trick that we picked up on is there's a lot of blueberry bushes up there. And when you see blueberries at this time of year, you know, we're pretty much end of August, start of September. They have like a dark red hue, and there's really bright red stuff on the ground. But these blueberries have like a dark red, almost like a, you know, like an auburn colored leaf. And then the lichen obviously is really bright white.
The light colored.
And when you got that mix of those blueberry bushes with the lichen, it tended to be firm. Now the tussocks were bright green, like everything that you're normally like, oh, there's a bright green field of everything. No, don't go near.
And at first your brain's like, oh, a high spot, step on it. But then it just, so you got to step in like the little like pockets in between the tussocks.
Which could be 6 inches deep. They could be 1.5 feet deep.
Saturated with water.
Which, you know, obviously, like we said earlier, the pack out, once you introduce even more weight on top of your pack, it's just, you just got to go slow. You just got to go slow.
So that was a little bit of a slog of a pack out, but it was super cool to come full circle, get my first caribou. Like I said, you know, this felt like a little bit bigger than just like the individual animal, just because, like I said, this hunt right now represents the culmination, I feel like, of my like my short hunting career, Western hunting career. Like, you know, I don't think I said this on the camera, I think on the film, but I don't think I could have pulled this hunt off any other time before now. Like every other time I've been to Alaska, I've been with a friend who's got more Alaska experience. And, you know, this is a different dynamic, and it just felt like significant and like a big, you know, I felt a little out of my depth a little bit when we first
we
got
talked
there.
about that, which I think is natural. And like anyone that...
You got to stretch yourself, right?
Yeah.
You got to get uncomfortable, get outside of your comfort zone. And we definitely did that. And I think it's...
You'll see it in the footage. You'll see it in how we talk. You'll see it, you know, in the episode. And I think that's like, for anyone that's looking to do this, if you're watching videos and people are just exerting confidence, like, it's not going to be that way. It doesn't need to be that way. Like, it's okay to...
Yeah.
You know, and it's probably natural to, and for your own safety,
game,
to have some fear.
Yeah. You got to have some healthy respect, fear, yeah.
But that moment was cool. I mean, even when you going into the trip and you were talking about, you know, how that first caribou hunt, which the fact that like your first, like, your like catalyst moment of Western hunting was a caribou hunt in Alaska is so foreign. Like, like that's such a, you know,
I've hunted caribou more than I've hunted elk.
As my mom would say, that's such a bass-ackwards way of doing it.
Yeah, I've never elk hunted yet, except for filming one. I've been on like a couple caribou hunts.
But to see like, you know, it's like you were like, that was like your like, you know, freshman year of college, and this was like graduation. Like you were still confident, you still knew a lot going into it. But like this was a cool maturation and like end of a cycle, and to do it where it was really admirable and impressive.
Yeah. And I do gotta give a shout out to my buddy Ned. I don't know if you listen to these things, dude, but Ned introduced me to Alaska, taught me a lot. Good dude, good hunter. But anyway, yeah, it's cool.
So the next day was probably my favorite day, which, you know, for some reason, and this is like everyone that's probably hunted Alaska a lot of times, they'll probably scoff and like be like, you know, they've gone through the ringer. God just gave us the next day. It was
amazing.
The most beautiful rest day it was Valhalla. It was like sunny, not a single cloud. Got up to like 60. At one point, you were like shirtless, t-shirt. We're like,
was that the same day that I was shirtless? So
it wasn't, but you were in t-shirts walking around, like you know. So, but we got to, you know, because we're close by the river, we shot out Aquabound paddles. We did a really, really cool like impromptu meat pole.
Yeah, it worked really well.
Where we took the paddles off. We found some big alders to where we could, you know, get the paddle in the alder, like kind of wedged in between branches and hang the meat. We used the floors of our alpaca rafts to shade it. We cut axed a bunch of brush to shade it in.
Yeah, we did the absolute best we could to take care of that meat.
And I think that's, you know, one thing to make note of if you're going up there is like whether it's, you know, the other thing was your tripods. The night before we did that, his 2 tripods had hooks on the bottom of them.
So it's for like counterweights.
Yeah.
You know? And so we just hung the meat right on those things. It worked perfectly. Got it up off the ground, aired it out. And if we hadn't actually, because after that night, it got significantly warmer. If we hadn't like hung that stuff up to air that night and cool down thoroughly, it could have been disastrous the next day, because it was able to go into that next warm day with like a cool core temperature and kind of survive that warm day. Otherwise, it might have been sketch.
And if if you're doing this on like a drop-in, like a super cub hunt, like if you're not thinking through your meat preservation strategy, there's almost going to be no resources out in the tundra for you to do anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, it's extra work, but like, I don't know. I talked to some guys who were like, "Oh, we're donating our meat," and I was like, "It's just sad, dude. Like, it's such amazing meat. Like, we spent all day today, literally, and we can go through. I'll go through more later. I'll do like a logistics podcast. This is more about the story, and I want to tell you guys we learned a lot about logistics of getting meat and antlers home. I'll do more about that, so we won't go super into detail on this podcast, but we learned a lot about that, but it's a lot of work. But just coming home with I think my case of bone-in meat, so it hadn't been deboned yet, but just the meat alone was 97 pounds.
Yeah,
so
100 pounds and non-GMO, never
even seen a farm.
Yeah.
Like all natural food.
And you know, this, for someone that wants to do this DIY, like getting up to the Arctic Circle, getting your gear up there, the gear that it takes to be there, it's not a cheap hunt. So like, and not to say that there isn't value in just, you know, the trophy aspect, the photos, the antlers, but to go to spend all the money, the investment, the training, the gear prep, and to go home with just a taxidermist bill, it would have been tough, you know.
Oh, heck yeah, dude. The payout for me is, you know, sitting around the table, like knowing the lengths I went to get that meat. Like my whole family's eating together. I just love that. But
so the rest
side
day,
note,
yeah,
we dried everything out. We set up clotheslines, like because when you're in like kill and pack out mode, like my top layer was like completely soaked because I just took off my rain gear, just crawling through. You know, you're just doing whatever you gotta do to kill.
And it was raining and drizzling and
yeah, and they were cleaning the animal, you know, in rain for hours. You got blood, so everything was soaked and bloody and gross. And like God just hooked us up with this amazing sunny morning. We got everything dry as a bone, tents, everything dry as a bone, like a reset.
Yeah, we went through like a full like chore cleaning day. Like it was like a camp reset day, and it all
amazing.
It all ends.
Charge batteries.
Yeah,
literally and figuratively.
Yeah, we had we had some just, you know, your typical Goal Zero solar panels charging some stuff, but you know, we get to the end of our rest day, and of course, what better way to celebrate a kill than he goes and
he goes spilled a drink on myself.
More graceful than that. So he grabs some tenderloin, he grabs some, you know, some other meat, and
it was meat off the shoulder. We grabbed a little chunk of meat off the shoulder and a tenderloin for my bowl. And then Johnny Boy.
Yep. We did bring fishing poles.
Tell him.
So we go out, and where we were at, and fishing is more or less my background. Granted, I've never caught a
I brought a fishing pole up there and never even took it out of the case.
So I'm like, you know, I'm all excited. I'm like busting out the spinners and whatever, and there's like a little current seam kind of, but I mean, the water was maybe 2.5 feet deep, 3 feet, like where we had accessibility to fish. And if I would have, in the moment, I think I told you, I was like, I think there's less than a 5% chance I catch a fish. And I had fished for maybe 25, 30 minutes, like making the same type of cast over and over again. You're like filming to get some B-roll.
Mainly eating lunch, but also filming.
And lo and behold, I'm like, oh, what the heck? Like that is
my bagel. He's like, I got one.
I'm like, no way. And so we go, you know, we catch this grayling.
A big, nice grayling.
Yeah, like a good 18-inch grayling. We bleed it out. We leave it in the river. He's working on the meat.
He went out like a 45-minute berry gathering journey while I was out. So I was slicing I took the meat, made it into little medallions, and I carry a little bit of salt and then a little MSR salt shaker with garlic powder, onion powder, and pepper mixed, and then just season up the meat.
Yep.
Tell them what you did with the berries.
So I mean, I'm like, I'm gonna go pick a few blueberries just for us to kind of like snack on. I had no intention of like picking, and I was like crawling on my hands and knees in the tundra, like straight bear bait. Like I did have bear spray on me at all times, but I'm crawling around. I'm just having the time of my life. I'm like strategically finding like bushes that are on this little rise have more blueberry. Like I was like hunting blueberries to the
You're foraging, bro.
Yeah, foraging to the 10th degree. And
that's awesome. You were out there a while, dude.
And so I come back with a jet boil, like a whole quarter full of blueberries.
Awesome. Oh, we ate there was fresh roe in the grayling.
Yep.
We ate the raw roe.
So yeah, so our dinner that night was like, and you, of course, you know, if you're going to do a hunt like this, especially if you have a big camp, a couple of guys, like bring a pan. I
was going to mention that. So I got just a little 8-inch MSR frying pan. It's definitely worth it for like this kind of trip. Like if you want to do something cool like this where you could cook in the field, you can't. Everything else I cook's in a 650 Toaks titanium cup. Like you can't make a backstrap in a titanium cup.
Yeah, you pretty much just make coffee and freeze dried, you know, in that kind of stuff.
So I took a little bit of fat off the back of the caribou. Actually came from off the tenderloin. Just like 2 little pieces of fat. Just get a little oil in there. Threw the tenderloin in there. We ate that just straight off the grill. It was so good. And then the other meat we cut and made my little traditional taco I always make. We didn't have cheese on this one, though.
We didn't have cheese.
Just straight caribou meat. I shared one of my tortillas with you. You had those. And then what'd you make with the berries and fish?
We filleted up the grayling. He brought a little bit of sugar, which was probably was like the most clutch thing in the moment. So we're like picking at a few of these blueberries, and I'm like, screw it. I'm going to mash these up.
He starts mashing with a tent stake.
With a tent stake. And I'm like, I'm going to make some like puree. And this is like the worst, the worst gesture. But so we're mashing up these blueberries, and we make this like puree, like sugar blueberry jam puree.
Yeah, we added some of my coffee sugar in there.
And the grayling is a super white, mild fish, so we put that on there, put the roe on top of it. I mean, for a couple of average dudes like us, it was about as good as a backcountry meal as I've ever had.
It was really good. So we got some rest day, some nourishment from the mountains, straight from the mountains and from the streams. Unfortunately, we only saw 3 ptarmigan the whole trip, and they were during John's stalk, which we'll get to later. But so no ptarmigan, but the grayling was amazing, and the caribou was really good. So
the next,
what did we do? Anything else that day? Just took care of the meat.
Yeah, we
ate,
just kind of just
rested,
recouped and kind of started
dried out.
Yeah, glassed a little bit, obviously trying to make plan because obviously it's my turn. But
okay, at this point though, I think at this point our little kind of honey hole.
We saw one bull that night walking away.
Did we?
Up in the base, remember, is walking over. We saw one bull.
Isn't that
night.
before we killed mine, or
that was after?
Okay, the next day. Okay.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it started to dry up in our little where we had been seeing everything.
I mean, granted, there was wolves hunting there. We had a carcass in there.
We killed in there. Yeah. So I mean, it was starting to get hunted out.
And that's like the downside. There's obviously plus sides of having these being like home ranging, migratory stage. But the downside is pressure.
Yeah.
If you get in on a herd and you kill one and you push them around, they're not going to just stay around.
So I think the next day, though, after our nice little rest and dry out day, was another rainy day, wasn't it?
That was the rainy, long tent day, or long lean-to day.
Tarp shelter, yeah. We were in the tarp shelter a lot. But this is when you found the bulls across the river, right? The first time?
Yeah, we saw them for the first time. And, so there's two, essentially where there's two, there's another river system.
Hold on a second. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
Or was this the day where it was sunny again? I had my shirt off.
No, that was the next day. So the next couple of days kind of went through in a blur because we really weren't seeing caribou in the spot that we had kind of counted on being the money hole.
Right.
And we had seen, we saw them saw 2 way up on a ridge, 6 miles away. We saw some across the river 4.5 miles away. But at this point, those really weren't options in our mind.
Yeah, that's true. We kept expecting to see bulls again where we have been seeing kind of where I killed mine. At some point, I don't know, maybe it was 2 days later.
So the day after was the double rainbow day, which was the rain. And then the day after that was the sunny day. And that was the day that we saw them. So that's day 5 now at this point.
And muskox day, that's a different day.
Muskox day is day 6. So again, this is the slowest part of the hunt, and we can compress it a little bit. So
we saw cool stuff during that though.
Yeah,
we were 20 yards from a muskox, a sick one.
So day 5, we see the bulls across the river. Day 6 was the morning we woke up, and I'm like, hey, let's dive in and cross the river.
But day 4, did you see him over there? After day,
day 4 was the rest day. Yep.
Day 5 is when it was raining.
Raining.
And you saw him the first time.
We saw him the first time, and then day 6 was the time that we were like, let's go cross, and we got into the thickest, berriest, moosiest. And I say grizzliest, moosiest. We put ourselves probably in a pretty bad. It was pouring rain.
Yeah, and that's when we decided, okay, this is not a good idea.
Yep.
We went back out to look for look in our honey hole.
Yep.
And then that night, then we see the bulls in the area that John was trying to get us to.
Yep.
And then we decide, all right, let's actually try this, because where we were at, we had a vantage. We could see a spot that looked like it was maybe crossable in a river.
Yeah, we could see an embankment. We could see some of the river, but in the terms of the timeline at this point, so he kills on day 3. We get the meat up on day 4. Day 5 goes by. Day 6, the meat can't just hang forever.
No, we're on a ticking time clock.
Yeah, and so we had kind of, especially with
it got colder, luckily for us.
It did get down to 32 or 33 one night, so we got a little grace there. But even with a 2-day float out, we kind of knew day 7 was the last possible hunt day.
Right. Plus, we were looking at our inReach. I was constantly checking the premium weather report. And so, obviously, you want to try to hit a weather window. You don't want to be paddling out and driving rain and stuff. So, towards the end of the trip, and we're doing math of timing and stuff in our brains and trying to get home to families and other obligations and stuff. And so we kind of originally we decided the 31st was the last possible day we could float out and make this work. Luckily, we shifted it to the 30th because of the weather window.
Yep.
We had 2 good days, one marginal, one good day for rafting in a row before more rain came in. So we decided, basically, we need to get out of here by the 30th.
Yeah, and we're still at this point pretty precarious about the rafting. Like,
oh, I was nervous.
Yeah, our first experience.
It was like looming over my head like a sentence.
I mean,
we got a raft out of here.
We were talking like, what do we have to say? What message do we have to send in InReach to get picked up?
Yeah.
Like transparently.
We were searching for, yeah. We almost were trying to chicken out.
Yeah.
But we didn't.
So, night of day 6, we'd seen these bulls. We didn't really have, and they're about, at this point, 3 miles from where we were glassing. And we make the decision, let's go see if it's even feasible to cross that river. Because tomorrow is our last day. We don't want to burn it figuring out that we are going to hike 4 miles and can't cross. Yeah. So we go down there. We literally are zigzagging up and down these river braids, just searching.
Like pretty legit river.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, for sure, 800 to 1,000 yards across with a bunch of little braids. We get over there pretty easy, but again, this is from...
okay, here, back up a little bit, too. John's had wet boots from day 2.
Day 2.
Long story short, we don't have to get into it, but his boots got wet on the first river crossing onto our base camp. So he's kind of like in just whatever mode. Like, I'm still in like hardcore foot preservation Alaska mode. Yep. So I'm not messing with getting my boots wet. Like, once they're wet in Alaska, they're wet.
I had a little bit of saving grace because your buddy had those super low energy boot dryers.
Yeah. Shout out to Austin Graxsaw. They have they're computer fan kind of basically boot dryers. They plug into a battery bank. And I literally ran those things for probably 18 hours straight, and it didn't even take a bar off my battery.
Yeah, I ran them overnight. Same type of thing. I ran them overnight on just a normal like phone charging battery, like a cheapo, like an $80 Amazon one, and it took 1 bar off.
Yeah, they're really low energy, and it gets just some airflow in there to dry your boots out. They work pretty good. So check out Graxsaw. They're on. Yeah, you can find them on Instagram and stuff. But anyway.
So night 6, so we get to this river crossing.
He is determined. He's bird dogging to get across this river. Okay, so that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
I was not trying to just go take off across this river.
And this is 7 or 8 p.m., still 35, 40 degrees out.
So we'd already tried once this day to get across this river and decided, this is not a good idea, we're not going to make it, whatever. We get to a vantage, we see a crossing, we said, let's try it. We get there. It's 7:30 p.m. It's cold. It's been a long day. We're both tired. He's determined to get across this thing.
I'm going up and down, and all I'm saying to him, I said, we got nothing but time. All we have to do is find a spot to cross. Like, he's
just like...
Yeah, he's like, I don't know if this is going to work. I was like, what do we have to lose? It's the only place that... I was like, and that's a true hunting dynamic. Like, we're at different stages, and, we're different at... I'm still at this point, I'm like, the clock is looming over my head, and...
You wanted to kill a bull.
Yeah, so ultimately we find a spot that, wasn't like super easy, but we do this big zigzag pattern, we keep a track, and we pretty much have a formula to get across this river.
He finds it. Shout out to him. He finds his way across this river. He looked like one of those lizards that like Jesus walks across the ponds at one point. And so I was like, dude, we got what, probably 2/3 of the way across together, me begrudgingly behind you the whole time. Yep. And then he gets to one point where he had to literally like dance across this pretty deep part, and I thought it looked pretty like deeper than my boots. So I was like, you know what, dude? I said to you, I remember I was like, you're like, I'm gonna cross right here. I was like, I can't promise you I'm gonna be behind you.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. But we figured it was fine because I could still see him. We were in eye, shot of each other. I was just like, I'm not having it tonight. I'm not crossing that thing.
Yeah.
So I wasn't feeling it.
But to your defense, so I get up on this berm, and the area that we'd been seeing this bulls was 1.5 miles long, giant like peninsula in between these rivers of like the best looking tundra you could imagine once we got up to it.
Tundra.
Yeah. And so
but not too hard to walk on either.
No. And I'm standing up on this berm, and it's just so flat. And I'm like using the spot. I'm standing on the highest little mound I can find using the spotter, and he's down, just 80 yards beneath me down on the river. And I go down, and we pretty much come up with this plan where you look me in the eye, you're like, if you see a bull in killable distance, I'm crossing the river. Like you were game.
Oh yeah.
It was just too late in the day after a long day in the rain to just
if you had like raised your hands like bull, I would have been like, I would have been there.
Yeah.
But I was like I said, I was in foot preservation still mode. So I was like, I'm not gonna cross unless I have to. So didn't have to, but we basically essentially found out that it was possible. To cross. And you didn't even really get any more wet. So.
No, thankfully it was like just up to like almost to the top of a gator, but it was rushing water. I mean,
And you did something smart. John had his rain pants tucked into the inside of his gaiters, and the gaiters on top.
Yeah, so that way if the water got through the gaiter, it would at least flush past the boot versus going, straight into the boot.
Right.
Stayed relatively dry, but it was far. I mean, just to get to the river, not the crossing, not the thing, was 3 miles. So we're looking at 4 miles from camp, which is a lot in the tundra.
And even just going back to camp that night, I remember being like, this is a long walk. I put music in.
Yeah, the only plus side was coming up on that muskox.
Yeah. About a mile in, I'm walking, I just see this giant brown thing in my periphery, and my brain, in the course of 1 second, goes, bear, no, bison, no, muskox. And it was like this just freaking Stone Age looking like Star Wars creature, just like just coming
big
through.
Old bull, just big old mop of a bull,
just coming through the little river basin there, and just looks at us we
pounds the ground, rubs on a tree.
I'm ripping out my long lens camera. He's running up to get closer shots. I finally get the long lens camera out, and it was kind of crazy. I didn't realize how much time we had. I don't know muskox behavior.
Yeah, they didn't give it. They were
Yeah. I finally get set up. He's rubs this tree of this thing and just stares at us and just kept going.
But like the double rainbow, we call those little unicorn moments, and we had little moments that were just little treats from Alaska of hey, this is cool. Even though the day was a grind, this is a cool little moment that's irreplaceable.
Yeah, almost every single day. The day before this, we didn't really talk about it, but we saw this epic golden hour double rainbow, huge 2 complete rainbows.
And when we say double rainbow, both of the ends of the rainbow were less than a mile from us. It was you can go, you want to go get the pot of gold, pick which side you want to get it from.
It was the most amazing rainbows I've ever seen. And we got a bunch of cool photos and videos, but anyway, so every night we had one of these cool unicorn moments, like you called it.
So day 7, we wake up, we're socked in till 11. And I remember
it's kind of a chill morning.
Yeah, super chill. But I remember, and at this point, we can glass where you killed your bull, and we're just hoping. I was like, please be a bull up there so we don't have to go 4 miles and cross that river. And
looking back, it's a good thing we rested up that morning.
Yeah. But I look at Hunter, and I'm like, Hunter, I will carry your waders. I was like, I hate this. I don't want to go across that river.
You did offer to carry the waders.
I don't want to go hunt a bull 4.5 miles from camp. But if it's the last day, the last evening, this is, I think, the only way that we could get this done. Mm-hmm. And so we do it. We make the long
and I didn't hesitate.
You did not. Oh, he was refreshed a little bit. I mean, yeah. And so we both crossed that river.
I used your tip. I put my rain pants into my gaiters.
No waders required.
Put my big boy panties on, and we crossed the river.
Yep. And we get up there about
totally dry feet, by the way.
5:45, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So good amount of time. And at this point, we don't know if they're going to be there. We're glassing. And when I say
we had the feeling, though.
Yeah.
We had the killing feeling.
And so
we were I don't know. We were making all kinds of jokes. Anyway, keep going.
And so, we're on this, and we don't want to push too far into the tundra because they could be they were bedding a lot.
It's so thick. They could be 100 yards from us and we wouldn't know it unless they stood up.
And everything in that tundra was about knee to maybe thigh high. So when you're looking at 1.5 miles of that, especially with little rises, you're looking through the spotter just hoping that you can see this much of the tops.
Yeah.
And so I push in, we're just staying right on the river edge, doing what we've been doing all trip and not pushing all the way in, not doing too hard. And I go about 300 yards, in just to kind of see if there's a little bit better vantage
And I was
point.
behind you with the long lens.
Yep.
You had the spotter.
And so I got the spotter, and I'm looking, and we had probably been up there for 40 minutes without seeing anything. And I just, every morning, I normally sing a doxology and before going on the hunt. And for some reason this morning, maybe of that particular one, because we were socked in, I just didn't do it. And so I'm sitting behind the spotter, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to sing my doxology.
That's awesome.
And so I'm looking through, singing it out loud, under my breath, and I'm just slow, the spotter's just stationary, but I'm just scanning the tops of these trees, and I just see. And
he went up like that?
See something come up and turn, and I just look, I got tears in my eyes, mid doxology, there's a bull it's early. It's 6:30. Like we got plenty of time.
I think it was earlier than that, wasn't it?
It might have been 5:45, 5:30.
Okay.
Yeah, but and yeah. So I come back to you, and I'm just like, bulls. Like we're gonna do this, but it was really hard.
You gave me like a thumbs up or something.
And so because of how big the flat was, I didn't know if they were a mile away. I didn't know if they were 3/4 of a mile. I mean, through the spotter on flat ground in tundra, when you're just looking at an antler move in brush, you're like, how far are we going to go? And so we start pushing in, and we get to, and we're trying to relocate them. And I'm like, okay, we go 300 yards, get the spotter up, look, don't see him. 200 yards, get the spotter up, don't see him. Finally, we've gone about 1,000 yards from where the river edge was, and I see, not a huge bull, not the one that I had originally glassed, not the one that turned, but a different bull is walking towards us. He's got a bunch of little stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I just look at him like, he's walking towards us. Packs are going off. We're going into go mode.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm in cameraman mode at this point.
Yeah, and rolling on
which is fun.
Yeah, rolling on everything, and so we're like pushing.
I'm following him. I got the long lens camera in this hand, which is super heavy, and then I got the handheld right here filming him, and then I'm like using my head to hold the camera because it's getting heavy. So
and we're running through this brush trying to stay as low as we can so he doesn't see us. And I'm holding the spotter and the rifle, and my back is like destroyed. I'm like, oh my gosh, like crouching and covering, hundreds of yards, just crouching going through.
Yeah. So we get in and I start ranging him.
And we can see him with the naked eye at this point.
And so it's hard to get a range on that really flat stuff because, I mean, there's just the depth of field is such that you have like a bush and then like a millimeter up is the caribou and like half a millimeter is more, you know what I mean? Like it's really hard to get a range.
It's barely, it's like.
And I'm kind of like a little shaky too, So anyway, we think we're about, what, was it 200?
200, and so we're like, okay, we're in killing range. And, little bit of backstory, and this is going to bury the lead a little bit. I bought my first rifle this year. I have shot a rifle. I've hunted a little bit. This is that rifle I bought.
That's the first rifle you ever bought?
Yeah, first firearm I've ever owned.
Oh my god!
So I've been a bow hunter.
First firearm you've ever owned?
Yeah. I've shot other people. Like How
did this not come up in conversation?
Yeah. So
you drugged this thing all the way to Alaska.
Yeah, as a backup gun.
Yeah.
But I had killed a nice aoudad a couple years ago. Shot was like 464 yards. And I feel very comfortable shooting a firearm prone. I've gone to the range. I've done all that. But because of the height of the brush, laying down was not an option.
Yeah. And if you guys have ever shot off tripod without any type of proper mounts or anything, it's really hard. Like your effective range, I would say, is more than cut in half for most people unless you practice as above average is about half your effective range with off sticks.
And I am so far below average that, and I'm not shooting off sticks with a holder, I'm shooting off a Leupold spotter in, decently tough, like a decently soft country, but lumpy, whatever. And
high pressure kind of situation.
We get to just under 200, and it comes the time to fire the first bullet of what turned out to be many. So we have 2 cartridges with 3 bullets each. 6 total bullets in hand.
I had an extra magazine on my Seekins. I shoot a Havoc Element 300 Win Mag, and Seekins makes these really good clips, so I have a couple of them, and it's got a 3-round magazine in his gun already, and I have an extra one. I was like, I better give this to John. So I think it was that day, wasn't it?
The day before, but I have it in my rain jacket pocket.
It was kind of it was a moment of. It was like symbolic. I took my extra magazine out of my binaural harness and put 2 batteries in it.
Yep.
Switched battery for bullets.
Switching gears.
Battery for bullets.
Yep.
Like it. So anyway.
So I get the gun resting on top of the spotter, and immediately I'm like, this is not gonna, I knew I was so far out of my element, and I'm like, it's okay. This thing, we're gonna make this thing work.
See, dude, I didn't know this stuff. You should have told me this. Okay, side note. If you're going to Alaska with people, you should probably get to know them a little better than we know each other. Because if I had known your effective range and comfortability, I would have taken us in closer.
100%. But part of, I mean, again, this is...
Because to me, like 200 with, I'm not saying,
Yeah.
I'm saying with my practice level and knowing my stuff,
Yep.
200 I can...
No problem.
No problem. So that's why I kind of stopped us there.
Which you never know. Like they could bug out. Like it's wide open tundra.
No
like
caribou experience.
And if we're standing in although there's brush, if we're standing, our entire top halves are just straight skyline exposed.
He can just see us. So we didn't want to get like super close. There's that like bubble of uncertainty almost.
And of course,
we probably could have gotten in retrospect closer.
Yeah, we definitely probably at least could have got to under 150 for those first couple shots. So I shoot once, and it's a 300 Win Mag. And so,
the Lord's caliber.
Yep. I shoot, and immediately, within half a second of squeezing the trigger, that gun just goes, and I'm like, this is not a great situation.
Yeah.
Rack another one, get back on him, and I'm feeling pretty good about like this. Everything was, in terms of controlling the gun up until the trigger pull was pretty normal. Like I was like, okay, shoot a second round, but. Thank goodness we're hunting in a spot that there's only been, roughly a couple guys there hunting every year for the past 20 years because it was really not unfazed by the first 2 shots.
Yeah, it started like trotting a little bit, but then it kind of stopped. It wasn't really...
And so, third shot, whole first mag gone. And at this point, we're like...
Is that when he disappeared for a second?
He disappears for a second, and like you were like, "Is he?"
I thought he went down.
Yeah, you're like, "Oh, he's down," and I immediately said, "No, Hunter, he is not." I know for a fact that I know that whatever I just did was not progressing the situation. So we got one clip left, and at this point, we're like, "Let's get closer."
Yeah.
So we get to about.
And obviously, folks, in a perfect world, we'd love to.
Every
single animal kill the first shot, but this is just real. This is hunting. I'm
mean,
not making light of it. It's just funny.
Yeah, I mean, and this is also like, I mean, I spend more time behind a camera than behind a gun.
Yeah.
And I think that's if there's any lesson here is obviously like know your gun, know your range, shoot everything. But I'm human. I'm not a professional hunter.
Yeah.
I'm not, and there's going to be grace for that. And I know plenty of people listening have had precarious
100%.
situations.
Everybody's has some kind of story like that.
So we close the distance to about, 120, maybe 130 yards. And I let 2 more rounds rip.
Still no caribou down.
Still no caribou. And we cannot, he's like...
We're literally down to 1 bullet.
And he's like, Hunter is so ramped up that he is... We're 100 yards for this thing, and he's
we keep getting closer.
Yeah.
I was willing... I thought we were going to have to walk up on him.
But all the hunt voice whisper it wasn't like you got 1 more round. It was like, dude, you have 1 more round. You're like, and I'm telling you, I'm like, please be quiet. He's right there.
First of all, I am deaf.
Yeah, he naturally, but
and I had earplugs in, and so I didn't really realize how loud I was talking, and I was excited.
Yeah,
but so combination.
We get down to 1 bullet, and
I'm feeling the pressure too, dude. I'm like, dude, you have 1 bullet.
Very killable bull. 1 bullet left. Last night in Alaska, and
it's like make or break. You make the shot, or we're done.
We're done.
Maybe we could sprint up to him. Go native mode.
Yeah, when you're talking knives and pistol sidearms, everything's at that point not in great sort.
Yeah. So anyway,
so we have 1 bullet left, and you make the great call, and we kind of agree. We're we're gonna get as close to this thing as possible.
Yeah.
So we get to 80 yards, hit the dirt. We start crawling.
Yeah.
And as we're crawling, my adrenaline, cortisol, I throw up in my mouth. I just throw up in my mouth. He has no clue.
Literally threw up in your mouth.
Threw up in my mouth, swallow it back down as I'm crawling with the gun. And we get to a spot at about 65 to 60 yards, and there's one little open patch where there's no bushes, and Hunter hands me his bipod. We get the bipod on the gun.
Spartan Precision.
Yep.
Bipod.
I get down, and he's got one big bush that this bull's behind, and he can. If he goes left, I have no shot. If he goes right, he gets into the one little lane where I can shoot from a prone position. Lo and behold.
If I didn't hand you the bipod, were you just going to go off Army style?
I have no clue. I have no clue at that point. Dude, everything going through my mind was you've used up 4 more opportunities than you should have You know, this is the
anyway, it all got the bipod.
Yeah, it all comes down to this one shot, and
all comes down.
I'm rested, settled in, now prone, now into a position I'm comfortable in, and he's at 65 yards with a 300 Win Mag, and he clears that bush, and probably from your angle, you thought I shot through a bunch of brush, but I see his vitals.
Actually, no. On the footage, you shot through a bunch of brush.
Well, from my angle,
I can see it explode.
From my angle, I can see his vitals through the top of brush. I'm like, I can clearly see hide, I can see his shoulder crease, and I'm like, okay.
The last shot was perfect.
Yeah, I'm settled in, I'm good, and thankfully that shot, yes, perfect drop.
Right behind the shoulder, perfect placement. But, dude, then in that moment, dude, he just collapses on the tundra. I have this all on film. And just, like, steam, like, huge puffs of steam are just coming out of his mouth. He goes, 6 shots, bro.
I was so, like, there was nothing inside of me that could have prepared myself for one, like, the chaos level mixed with a little bit of stress, but more so just like
definitely.
like deep desire to like not be like
on that long pack raft out with 6 bullets and no bull.
Yeah, I mean, I had every opportunity. It was like, you know, there's a lot of things in hunting, like the wolves. Like, there's a lot of times that like it's partially out of your control if things don't go your way. This was the first time in my life that I don't think I couldn't say anything. I mean, I missed every opportunity. Would have missed every opportunity.
Yeah.
And so that moment, like, I mean, the release, I just rolled, I mean, my eyes were closed. I rolled on my back. I'm just like, I just can't even believe this.
Yeah.
And, you know, it makes for a great story. It makes for a good, like, learning, constructive thing for me to spend more time shooting from sticks. But last day, last bullet, second tag filled, we had completed the mission.
Yeah, and I was there. I was probably being very loud and very excited, but I was trying to help. I was trying to get ranges for you, you know, capture the moment. I remember a couple times being like, all right, just breathe slow, breathe slow. I don't even know if you're breathing fast, but I was just trying my best to help. I probably would have, well, it doesn't matter, retrospect or hindsight's 2020, but we probably got a little closer, but whatever, you know, the bull went down cleanly and ethically in the end. Took a few shots, but it wasn't like you were like, you know, hit him in the leg, hit him in the butt, hit him in the face. Like, it was, you know, pretty much clean. And that last shot was a kill shot. So, it was amazing, dude.
And so
that was the start of a lot of work too.
Yeah, we worked our butt off.
He was, let me just say about the bull too.
Yeah.
He was a younger bull than mine.
2 or 3 years old, about half the age.
Probably, yeah. More compact rack, but beautiful, like tons of points going on the top. Double shovels, double back scratches, bezzes, all that stuff. He was really pretty compact. Bull had a nice white throat.
And to go back to, like, you know, what we talked about a little bit with your bull, we killed the 2 bulls that we had chances at.
Yeah.
And that's like,
I wouldn't change a thing.
I know a lot of caribou hunting, you know, especially probably in years that have really strong migrations, you probably get to pick and choose a little more. You get to watch some bulls, you get to pass some bulls. Given the way that we were hunting, patterning, getting bedded, getting feeded bulls, like, you know, we took the 2 opportunities that we got and blessed for them.
It's cool, like, you know, I don't have a ton of experience, but hunting experience, it sounds like I do have more than you. So it's cool, like, you were very, I'm not trying to sound like I was the hunter and I was like helping you, because you were glassing a ton of animals. You were like integral part of this hunt. And I was seriously just kind of at my, like, almost at that level of my comfort zone where I'm kind of trying to take care of myself on some level, you know? Like, I'm just barely surviving, but it is kind of cool, like, because I got to do the hunt with Luke too, where, and not that he's not experienced outdoorsman, it's just that you guys spend most of your time working and filming during hunting season.
And
so you're developing that skill and like that kind of thing. So it's kind of interesting, like if it's something I do more going forward, of almost like mentoring a little bit. Not that I was mentoring you, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, but there's also like, there's just so many different elements. So like, you know, like we come back to elk hunting. It's like, you know, I've been on, you know, many more elk hunts than you have, but like the scenarios change so much species to species. And even if you are a tenured, you know, I've spent more than a decade with a bow in my hand chasing whitetails. I've been on plenty of elk hunts. I've drawn on elk. I've done like killed an elk. You know, like I've done killed an aoudad. You're about to go on your first, like all those things in our minds. We love to attribute. Like I know that there are some commonalities that carry over hunt to hunt, but the eye-opening thing for me is like a lot of my hunting experience is just so different than Alaska and so different than caribou. And it's like you can have you could be a great bugler, you could be a great archer, you could be the guy that can hike 12 miles a day and pack, but like this specific hunt channeled a lot of different things that you had experience in that I had no experience in.
That is true. Because it is very weird. Like I have more Alaska experience than elk hunting. Yeah. Probably even more. I have more Alaska experience than mule deer hunting. Yeah. So it's just weird. It's just a different kind of.
And so you think, you know, I went into this thinking that, and granted, like I said, there's a lot of commonalities.
And I'm not some Alaska badass guys. Like I'm still learning too, but a lot of my experience is from doing it.
And there's things, locating animals, patterning animals, reading animal behavior. There's a lot of things that do carry over, but in those moments, like choosing where to shoot from, choosing where to access, like, you know, just going, it was just so different than everything, everything I've ever done in a really cool way. And to have you there, you know, mentorship is a great word, but it's also just like having a support system of someone that's going to like be mutually, you know, goal oriented as you, and also be able to, you know, both film and just be in your ear of like, you know, you got this, like stay calm, like those things, like not be on an island, I think is the best way to put it. I was the furthest thing from on an island. Not honestly, I didn't get target panic. I did like nothing about that was like a anxiety ridden situation for me, but it was really good to have someone there just like procedurally processing it with me. For sure. And saying like,
And same goes for me too. I mean, there are moments when I remember you talked me off a ledge with the rafting because I was so nervous about it. You're like, dude, we're gonna be fine. Like we're gonna be fine. So we both were helping each other out, man. It's like that's why, you know, hats off to you if you can solo hunt. I've done it before. I think it's great to have the fellowship and the support because there's just naturally gonna be times when, you know, your partner or you just need that extra little kick for a second, and then, you know, maybe 5 minutes later you're kicking your buddy, you know, whatever it is. So I like that too. As you put it very eloquently, I like that. So
we got him
awesome, dude.
We got him packed out 4.5 miles back to camp, and then
you breezed through that way too quick. That was a rough pack out.
It was rough. I don't want to remember it. That's like the cliff note version.
It doesn't sound like terrible, like 4.5 miles, but those caribou are pretty big. Yeah. He was carrying a full cape too. Yep. I had a heavy freaking camera and the rifle and extras and 2 quarters, and I brought like my bear pistol that day. I had my waders in my backpack, which was stupid, but
you know, we're both pushing 80 to 100 pounds.
Oh, dude, I bet my pack was easy 110.
Yeah, very much possible. And I would probably agree with that. And then, you know, you're going through like the river crossing that you thought was super easy when you had 30 pounds on your back is all of a sudden a little bit different.
Yeah. I mean, a couple rocks slip and outcomes could be different.
And the nice hard path, the nice like mile part of it that you're like, this is so easy. You seemingly find all the little holes, all the little, like, you just like,
absolutely.
You know.
It was a mental slog.
Yeah. And we got back to.
Would you say 3 hours?
Yeah, 3 hours. And we got back to camp at like, you know, 11:30 p.m. All the while, you know, your mental state is like, hey, this pack out is brutal, but I have to wake up tomorrow and start a 25-mile raft.
So
out.
That's 70-mile raft.
Yeah, well, the first day we're like, okay, like we're gonna try to get a bunch of miles in.
Yes, it's not like I can chill tomorrow. It's like tomorrow we have to wake up, break down camp, take care of all this meat plus another bull, get it all in the pack rafts, pack up, and then like try to chew off as many miles as we can.
Yep. It was not the sunny rest day with grayling roe and like blueberry jam. It was like
it's like trial by fire again.
Yeah, I had like tactical M&Ms that I ate the entire day. I was like, all I had like was
it's this rock candy he had that was, what was it called?
They're literally.
My battery's about to go.
Okay.
Let me switch the battery really quick, guys.
Quick pause.
All right, so John had these these candies that were called like Ops Rocks or something. They're basically chocolate covered, like, and they had like caffeine and like a couple of nutrients or
It had
something
like
in it.
fat and a bunch of vitamins. It was from this company called like Tactical Nutrition. Never had them before. Literally bought them discount on like Sierra Trading Post.
I jokingly called them tactical M&Ms, which is basically what they were. They're like little chocolate covered, but they were good. Anyway, so you were crushing those. I think I stopped halfway through the pack out and made a bagel because it was like dinner time and like I was just about to bonk. So, but we made it. It was definitely a grinder. And then the next morning it was like, all right. Mercifully, thank God again. The next morning it wasn't as sunny, but like we got a little bit of sun, and it wasn't. Main thing was it wasn't raining. It wasn't like overly sunny, but it was enough that we could pack up camp meticulously, which we had to do, and shuttle meat down to the like boat launch site. Both of us, you know, have this kind of, at least for me, I have like just a little bit of looming. Like,
not just at least for you. We'll get to my freak out moment.
We both had like just in the back of our head this like looming sense of a little bit of fear. It's just intimidating. This long mountain. I mean, we're talking about each carrying, admittedly, too much gear, a lot of food, and a bull each.
And you're shoving like the idea of being at a river's edge in an inflatable craft while shoving so that. The way that you save on space is you put your gear, your quarters inside of the raft tube.
Yeah, the meat actually goes inside the inflatable part of the raft tube.
So like my brain, I'm removing air and adding weight. You know what I mean? You're like, the real estate is less air, more weight.
More straight meat. Yeah, so I mean, I put my entire caribou, except for the head, and 2 big dry bags of gear. Actually, it's counterintuitive, but you actually put your most important like gear that you can't get wet in the tubes. That's the driest spot. So I had dry bags. So that's another thing. Like if you're gonna do anything like this, just bring extra dry bags. So I put all my camera gear and like clothing and stuff like that in some dry bags in the tubes and all the meat. So yeah, it's daunting. I guess is a good word.
And you're like, and
it's
you have
serious.
Yeah, you know, we have 70 river miles ahead of us, and you're like, it's literally like packing up to go to war. You're like, every piece you put in, you're just like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, and like I mean.
Packing up to go to battle or something.
Yeah, and you have like, you know, you mentioned the dry bags. If I were to do it again, which we got told that like you learn, it's better to have like 5 like 30-liter dry bags than like a big like Yeti Panga. Like the bigger the bag, the less stuff you put in your tube, the more stuff's on your raft. And when you're in these pack rafts, you're like getting like a prostate surgery. Like your legs are like up in stirrups. Like it's not like you're sitting in a raft like a canoe and going like I
was able to sit Indian style most of the time, but I had to like rotate with putting my feet out like that. It's not like roomy. I mean, you're in there with a bunch of gear, and so I had like a dry bag and then my pack and then a caribou head tied down. So I mean, I had to look over it. I had to go like this to see in front of me. Like that's how high it was on my raft.
And you're only, when you're sitting in the water, you're only like legitimately like 6 to 8 inches from the water line.
And your thing is full of meat. Which that keeps it cool, which is good. But
which, thank goodness, those pack rafts, those Rangers, they have so many tie downs. They're so well, like getting gear secured on those was a breeze.
It was, and I got my stuff kind of set up. We'll go back to the zipper moment, but I got my stuff kind of on there loaded before John did. I just started earlier than him, and I had it tied up, and it was kind of this little like small little like kind of harbor, to use a lack of a better word, where the water wasn't moving. And I was just like kind of just sat in it, just be like, all right, what's this like? You know, just get a little. And I was like, okay, this doesn't feel too bad. And so then I felt a little better, and then then right as I'm feeling like, okay, we can do this, I hear.
We're effed. We're absolutely like, and my voice was, my octaves were just raising.
We're effed.
I get my backpack, I get everything, all my meat, I get my hunt pack, everything in the raft, and I go to, there's one zipper, like, in really well-made zipper, like, this is just a product of being on sandy beaches, like.
These were loaner rafts, so they weren't like new out of the box. They've been used and loved probably quite a bit.
And so I go and pull that zipper, and the zipper gets halfway down, and behind it just splits open. So I'm like,
this is what keeps the air in the tubes.
This is the one seal. This is the one Ziploc. And I pull the Ziploc halfway, and boop, pops open behind it, and I just look at him.
Doing it.
And I just look at him. I was like, we're effed. We're total. Like, we're done. Like,
I was like, oh no.
And thankfully, you know, like for all the times that I settled him down, like we talked about, he comes over, pulls out his knife, starts getting some of the dirt and debris out of the zipper thing, Alpaca on these loaners, they have like this great little like troubleshooting kit. It's even got instructions like, hey, if this happens, do this. There's zipper lube. Like, you know, they definitely knew that, like, obviously if you do a lot of pack rafting, you're going to encounter these things eventually. And so 5-10 minutes into it,
you just cleaned the zipper a little bit, lubed it up, and then it was able to zip.
And of course at that moment, like I just told you, I was like, I think I have, even though it zipped and you're like, okay, it's good. I'm like, great. I'm going to start this journey in this compromised zipper. We're going to hit one little wave bump and that thing's going to pop back open and I'm going to be swimming.
We were talking about it earlier. Like Alpaca Raft makes an incredible product. Like that, those things got us. I remember at one point looking back and seeing the mountains and you couldn't even see them anymore.
Yeah.
And we had come from those things on these rafts big enough to fit in your backpack. They're amazing. They did the job amazingly. But still, like, it's your life is in the balance of a couple millimeters of some proprietary, you know, PVC blend or something, and some stitching.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's
just an elevated version of everything else. Like, you could have a $800 Stone Glacier pack and a strap could break and you're
a buckle on your belt
and you can't pack out an animal. Like, so it's like it's that margin of error that's normal in any, you know, backcountry hunting scenario, except you're on 33-degree water that's just cooking.
Yeah, and there's no help close by, and it would be insanely hard to get a fire going, and it could go downhill quick.
Yep.
But
we got a mile or two down the river.
Oh, we were just like, yes.
This is so sick. Like, you know, once that wore off and we went through some good, like, you know, class 1-ish little rollers and a couple little char holes, and like we made it through just what we perceived to be like some of the hardest stretches of the river that were close, and it was a lot of just enjoyment after that.
Yeah, it was, you know, it was pretty fun. We started being like, okay, this is cool. This is pretty legit. Like, you definitely had to work. It wasn't like, you know, they say like a float out. That's really a misnomer because while you are floating, you are very active in picking lines, finding brays. Like, you get barred out. If you relax too much, you'll just hit a bar, and you got to get out and pull your boat. So you have to be very aware and
you don't
active.
go 100 or 200 yards without rowing.
No.
Like, it is not a lazy river.
No. But we got over that fear factor, and then it just became kind of, I mean, honestly, like, it was fun for a while, and then it just became kind of a grind.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, imagine driving somewhere in your car for 5 hours. It's, you know, it's a long time to sit and just do something like that.
Yep.
So it's kind of, you know, imagine on a, you know, pretty cold, wet, a little bit stressful, scary, you know, slightly scary maybe at some time.
Yeah.
I was never really scared, but like, it's just a high stress situation. And for 5 hours.
And you have to be like, you know, if you want to do a pack raft thing and you haven't spent time, even just in a canoe or a kayak on your local river, like, you need to be able to read river currents. Like, you need to be able to see, like, hey, these, you know, some of these bigger waves is a nice scene that's going to be more water. These ripples are going to be bars because, like, especially for me, if you don't have waders, every little bar that you get stuck on and you have to go stand out and drag your thing off of is wet boots.
Yeah. I had the waders, so I was a little bit more just readily like, whatever, and just jump out and just pull. But it's a pain, and it slows you down. It burns extra calories, and you have to pull the boat sometimes on those things. So you have to be very cognizant of where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah.
So mentally and physically, you know, your hands start to get a little sore, and like mine did, you get a little sore. So we did pretty much 5 hours straight, covered 24 miles that first day.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think it was more like 7 hours. We were like 2 to 9.
Okay, wow. So, but anyway, then we just find this random little island in the middle of the river.
Yep.
We camp on it, and, you know, just another example of God and good planning, to be honest. I was looking at the weather the whole time, but God helping us for sure, and just, you know, being wise. But it started raining right. We got camp set up. We were both kind of hangry.
We had just zippered our tents and just...
And I was getting all cranky because I was hungry, and then rain. So it was perfect. Got everything set up in the dry. Next morning, again, we got totally blessed. It was warm, sunny
55,
day.
58 degrees, sunny.
Yeah, I mean, the clouds rolled in a little bit later, but on the whole, it was a beautiful day for up there. And then it was just another long 5-6 hour raft.
Yep.
We ate a little breakfast, packed up, and hit the water, and just sent it. And we made it all the way to the boat launch. We got to the boat launch at what, like 5?
Yeah.
5 p.m.
Yeah, 5, 6 p.m.
It was wild, man. I mean, we literally went from a mountain landscape, clear water, to flat delta plain, muddy water, almost like Louisiana
Silty,
or something.
Yeah, like
weird, yeah. Just completely change of ecosystem. You know, when you go down, like you said, in an airboat or whatever, something fast, you don't really experience the landscape. It's kind of like doing a long road trip on a motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you see it, you feel it, you smell it, you're in the environment. And so, like, we really went from, like, the Brooks Range Mountains into the flats. And it was just amazing looking back and be like, dude, we floated out from that, like, under our own power.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm, you know, pontificating too much here, but it was, like, a crazy adventure.
It was really rewarding. I mean, that's like the biggest thing is like all that, you know, with fear comes from a lot of self-doubt. So like when you're doubting your ability or doubting your gear and you get validated through perseverance, like it is a payoff. It is, you know, it is really rewarding. And it is like that big, you do feel like you won. You're like, you know, it is something worth celebrating. You know, one of my favorite parts of obviously covering that much river mileage, you know, not a lot of people, but you know, there's 10 to 20 camps over this course of that 70 river miles. So to float past these camps of people with jet boats, airboats, got dropped in on Super Cubs, they're
propane
grills, and we smelled fire, and we're like passing them, and you know, to have like
with our bulls.
Yeah, and there are other out of state hunters and really cool people, and like to have them like, you know, you float by them, they're just like, yeah, waving congrats, like pumping fists. It was a really cool like hunting community moment to like have your bull sitting up there and to get celebrated passing all these other like
cool.
It felt like very old school, like, you know, early trapper days, like this collective effort celebration.
And it's kind of like we had just come out of, you know, another world, and we're coming with these like beasts that we brought out of the other world into this.
Yeah, and they're like, you know, people are like, you know, some of those camps, you know, they're 30, 40 miles from where we were hunting. They're like, where'd y'all come from? And we're like, the mountains. And like it's this, you know, you can see the top 2,000 feet of the Brooks Range, and it's way off in the distance, and they're like, wow.
It was like an exit parade.
Yeah.
Not exactly, but
no.
There were moments that felt like it.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. He was moving a lot faster than I was on the river, so I think you probably got the better reactions out of people. But I did interact with a few people, but it was cool, man. It's just waving people down, and I saw a couple fist pumps in there, and it was cool.
And to see, you know, I remember vividly, like one guy was fishing. I talked to him for a second, then came on with this group who's also going through Dead Horse as their outfitter.
Texas guys?
Yeah, they were Texas guys. And, you know, I'm, you know, live now in Oklahoma, but, you know, to have like, and I'm sure you would have felt the same way if you saw like other Virginia or other like Southeastern people, like to see people out there, you know, normally when you're in a public land hunting scenario, you're a little bit on edge when you see other people, even if you're, you know, like me, like I don't really care. Like public land has tons of pressure. Like when you're elk hunting, you see people or whatever, but like it was a different feeling than like us encroaching on each other's space. It was like this big collective, like, you know,
there's room enough for everybody.
Yeah, this like tribal culture of like we're all hunting the migration type thing. You know what I mean?
No, for sure, man. I like that.
But that was really cool, and you know, especially like to hear guys like that like also have success. It was just very a group celebratory environment.
Yeah, and even when we got back to like the Brooks camp or whatever, there's other groups that waiting to go out, and other guys coming back in, and so it's cool meeting some of those guys and chatting. But yeah, I mean, before I guess, you know, we won't go too much longer here. It's getting late, but I don't know, any like other things that just stand out from the trip, like from that part of the trip?
One thing we talked about, and I'll give a shout out to another outdoor creative, Adam Foss, really well, you know, he big sheep hunt guy, one of the best, you know, hunt documenters probably in our industry.
Guest on the podcast, previous guest. If you want to go check it out, episode with him.
He made a post about a week or two before we left of the guy crossing a river, not too dissimilar to some that we cross, and said something along the lines of, someday our feet won't take us here anymore. I think my big takeaway from this week as a whole is the adventure, the rigorous requirements of what we chose to do is probably not something that I could do 10 or 15 years from now. You know, we hit it at a time in our lives where we're both physically fit enough to do it. And that was like the number one thing that I'm most grateful for. And like, I couldn't emphasize more for someone that really craves adventure and unique hunting scenarios is like, these caribou tags might not be over the counter for very long. These types of, whether it's caribou or anything, like if you want to do something like this, very much chase it when your body and your mind is in a state that you can persevere and that you can.
It's not a thing to push off.
Yeah.
You don't know if you're going to have next year, man.
Yeah. And it's not something that, you know, we talked about it, like I'll probably never do that specific raft out pack hunt again. Yeah. But like the double rainbow, like the muskox at 25 yards, to like as a hunter to get these unicorn moments, these like, you know, cliche once in a lifetime, but just to have these like canned, unique, you know, not repeatable things. It was the biggest takeaway. It was the biggest blessing of just like, even more so than the bull, to go and do something that I know in my heart I'll probably never get to do again in that fashion. And then to do it with someone that, you know, we get to share the same level of angst, the same level of, you know, we have a similar skill set. We have a similar, like, just to share it with someone that's on a similar ground, someone that is now a buddy. Like, you know, I really, really, really would encourage a lot of people that love Western hunting and adventure to plan something that you get to problem solve with your friends and you get to go and push yourself.
Well, appreciate you, dude. You did a really good job, and it was a good hunt, man.
Anything on your end?
Yeah, it's a big, I mean, I feel like, you know, there's so many things we could talk about. Biggest takeaways, you know, the biggest thing, you know, just really push yourself, man. Like, it kind of piggybacks off what you said, I think, but I don't know where the phrase came from. I heard it from somebody, but the thing that kept going through my head randomly throughout the whole trip was just expect to self-rescue. And that's what you need to do, like, with Alaska. Like, that's very much the mindset of the people up here. It's like, if something goes wrong, you kind of you do what you do what you say you're gonna do, and if something goes wrong, like, it's on you to figure it out, you know. And like, you know, there's been other times in past hunts, you know, when I was still learning, and I think when you're with someone of a greater skill level or more experience than you, at least myself, it's maybe a flaw of mine, I don't know, I tend to defer to them and kind of look to them to kind of fix everything, to like, if something goes wrong, like, okay, well, what do we do now? Like, this time I felt very much like that was on me, and it was, and not taking away anything from Jon too either, but it just felt like it wasn't up to anybody else. Like, you know, ultimately, if something happens to Jon, it's just as bad of a situation as if it happens to me, because there's no way in hell I'm leaving him out there or anything like that. So we're in this thing together. I mean,
and this was your dream. You planned it. You're the logistics guy of this trip, and that responsibility did fall on your shoulders.
Yep. I remember when we first set out, Hook finally came out and kind of gave us the spiel. It was quick and to the point and not very much, but he gave us the little spiel. I remember just standing there. He's, you know, probably 6-7 inches taller than me. And he was just kind of very matter of fact. And I'm just like, yeah. And that was when it sunk in. I was like, whoa, dude, like, this is about to go down. And it was because it's serious, dude. Like, it's a serious endeavor. Like, I'm not gonna say it's like dangerous or scary, but you have to respect it. And so I do recommend that people do this, try this. At the same time, you need to be a little bit realistic, or at least know what you're going into. You know, I didn't just like jump into this hunt like day one. This is my third time to Alaska. Like I said, every other time I've been with someone who knew more about Alaska than me and could kind of help me through and learn stuff. So I'm not saying go plan a 70-mile float out by yourself next year, like just willy-nilly, because it's serious, and it took everything I have as a hunter to pull it off. But we and God blessed us big time. Yeah, we freaking did it, dude. Yeah, we did it. We filled 2 tags. We had an amazing hunt, amazing footage. We floated out. We did it all ourselves. We problem solved. We got across that river when we needed to, and we didn't want to. You know, we did it. So, you know, and shout out to God. We couldn't do anything without Him. Obviously, we give glory to God, but But at the same time, we brought our loaves and fish, and we did our part, and we did it with God's help, man. So, great trip, like extremely memorable hunt. Can't wait to put the films up together, and it's going to be a tough one to top. You know, I'm the same way. I don't know if I'll ever do this same specific hunt again. Not because I wouldn't want to, but just I would like to go back and hunt there sometime. Just there's so many other adventures out there waiting. Man.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to kind of do the same thing when you know there's just a different adventure you could do. So I would like to go back for caribou sometime again. Maybe a different type of trip, maybe a slightly different time of year. But that's my main thing. It's just like, because even when you said that zipper, like when you're like, raft in the zipper, literally my first thing was, like, my subconscious goes, I'm being totally vulnerable here. Okay, sweet. Our raft is broken. We have to get picked up now.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, we're going back to camp. We're setting up. We're waiting for the airboat to come get us. And I was like, I walk over and I was like, no, all right, let's see it. Let's try to fix this thing. And we did. It wasn't a big deal. But I think pushing yourself, sorry, I know I'm rambling here, but the last thing on that is getting outside your comfort zone. You know, like that's how you get better. It's analogous to in the gym, in life, as a person. If you want to grow, you have to get uncomfortable, get outside your comfort zone, and that's where growth happens. But it's not comfortable in the moment. Yeah. So like a lot of this hunt in the moment was uncomfortable. Like I said, I really felt like that pack out, the raft out, was kind of like looming over my head the whole trip. But you know, we did it. We enjoyed the experience, and I think we're coming out of this definitely better hunters, better people.
I always think, shout out Virginia. I always love the line from Remember the Titans where he's like, ask Denzel Washington's he's like, is football fun, Petey? Is hunting fun? And he's like, yes, sir. He's like, are you sure? He's like, no, sir. Is football fun? Zero fun, sir. Like, there was a lot of that on this trip.
Fun, yeah.
Yeah.
But like when you look back on the experience, like I said, it's so rewarding.
Yeah.
It's more than just like, oh, that was fun. Steve Rennell, a roller coaster's fun, but this is a different level. This is like a life experience.
And I think, there's plenty of giant caribou out there. You could, we saw giants, we saw probably book animals, we didn't kill book animals, but like when you put that stress and when you set that bar of getting out of your comfort zone, whether it's a 6.5-year-old bull, whether it's a 3.5-year-old bull, it really didn't matter because it was like just the best payoff. Like it relieved, I'm not a trophy hunter, you're not a trophy hunter, but stretching yourself on the adventure side of it relieved any obligation to worry about what the animal was that you harvested.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm so grateful for the bulls we got. I'm so grateful that I love my bull. I think he's cool. I like to say he's an ancient old bull that was regressing from his prime.
Yep.
I don't know if that's true at all, but he has got an awesome, like, representative, big old shovel. He's got a good frame, and I don't even care. Like, he's just cool looking. It's just, it's just amazing. I wouldn't change anything about this hunt, man. Like, super stoked with how it came out.
Can't wait to share the visuals, and more so, like, definitely be on the lookout for, your, after action report. This, we were very experiential on this podcast, but all the logistics and a lot of the little gear details and everything, there's so much that was learned that I can't wait for you to share with people.
Yeah, like this is the end of 2 days on the back end of this trip of literally just logistics of getting dry ice, getting fish boxes, packing meat, transporting meat, storing meat, taxidermists, cutting up antlers and skulls, checking them on airplanes. Like, yeah, we really learned firsthand a lot about what it takes to successfully get your trophy and your meat, which is as much of a trophy as the trophy to me, home properly. Because if you take the extra couple hours like we did, getting the dry ice, getting the right fish boxes, packing them properly, storing them properly, you'll get home with tasty, delicious meat you can enjoy. If you we could have just been like, oh, they're frozen, and just left them in the box, and we would have gotten home with something, but it probably would have been not great. Yeah. And maybe completely spoiled. So.
And that's just the surface level of so many details that, like, I think that you can, educate other people just to make things more fluid. Because with each step, with each little minor logistic thing that we learned, it just got so much easier and so much more enjoyable. And I think, like, going into, I think everyone's guilty of this, going into the hunt, we're so focused on the pursuit of an animal that we definitely think about the logistics, but it's not a priority thing. And for this specific hunt, and probably most Alaskan hunts, if you really invest into learning those logistics, whether it's through podcasts, videos, like, you're just going to have a more enjoyable time.
Yeah.
By a lot. Like, it's just going to be more fluid. You're going to be more confident. You're going to get to celebrate and sit in the things that are worth sitting in, and you're not going to, you know, get stuck in the stuff that's just going to drive your, you know, drive you up a pole.
Yep. The last thing that just came to mind, like with Alaska, you have to play the weather. Yep. Like, you don't let it play. Like, you don't dictate what you do. You let the weather dictate what you do. Yeah. That was just like a random popped in my head. But yeah, man, great trip. I don't know. It's coming up on pretty late. So yeah, guys, we got a flight in the morning. We're probably gonna close it here. Yep. That was basically a recap. Like John said, I'm gonna do an in-depth podcast with all the details of logistics and all stuff to help you guys out. We just want to tell the story of the hunt, kind of lay it down while we're in person together. But yeah, that was it. So be on the lookout for this. You know, this is probably the first episode of season 2 of the show on Sportsman, but I'm working on a way to do a closer to real-time digital release, so keep an eye out for that, or might be sharing some of the content through a video podcast we were discussing, like put some footage into potentially this or a future podcast to kind of tell the story better with some visuals. So anyway, be on the lookout for all that stuff. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, you know, follow me on social. I appreciate you guys' support, and we'll just close it here. But thanks again, dude.
It's a way to kick off the season.
It was an amazing way to kick off the season. So thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.